Hmm? Ah!
You know what I've been asking myself a lot this last week? Why me? Why do I get impaled? Why do I get bitten by snakes? Why do I fall for incredible losers? And you know, I think I've finally figured it out. What my problem is? It's Buffy Summers. That's when all my trouble started, when she moved here.
You okay?
Oh, I just pulled some stitches last night. Know why? Surprise, it was Buffy's fault.
Oh, hey, it's Garbage Girl. Loved the look last night, Cor. Dumpster chic for the dumped. Yeah. Here. I think you need this more than I do right now.
Yeah, I could use some luck. And a stick with pointy, sharp bits. If that Buffy wasn't, I swear.
She's pain. But Xander, he's an utter loser. Don't you wish?
I never would have looked twice at Xander if Buffy hadn't made him marginally cooler by hanging with him.
Really?
Yeah, I swear. I wish Buffy Summers had never come to Sunnydale.
Done.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. I'm Penny.
And I'm Jim.
And I'm Kara. This episode, we're going to be discussing Season 3, Episode 9, The Wish, directed by David Greenwalt and written by Marty Noxon. The original air date for this one is December 8th of 1998. And this episode had an audience of 4.2 million households for its original airing. Not too shabby.
You may have noticed that Jim is back with us again. We did a back-to-back with him after Lover's Walk, and now we're going to talk about The Wish, which is many people's favorite or one of their favorite episodes.
So good.
I would be tempted to say, oh, this is one of my all-time favorite episodes, except that I say that like about so many episodes. And I was recently just sort of skimming over the episodes that are coming in season 4 and season 5. And I remembered some just absolutely bonkers things that are coming, like Kinda Blue, and then Checkpoint in season 5. And I mean, The Body, and then, you know, there's like the musical and Tabula Rasa. So it's like, I don't want to say best, you know, overall episode, but it's pretty high up there for
It's
most
in my
people.
top 15. I can say that, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
I
It's hard,
think.
right? It's really, really
Top
hard.
20.
Well,
I don't know.
So this is the weird thing for me, and I almost got into this in our pre-gaming, but so the first time I watched it, I felt the same way. And last week, you know, so those of you that are listening that heard me say next week's is going to be in my top 5 too. When I first watched this like 3 weeks ago, loved it the same way I always loved it. For some reason, when I watched it yesterday, there were things that started to annoy me. So this is, I don't know where well, we'll get into that. I don't think it's a bad annoying.
Yeah.
I think it for our discussion, it's a typical, there's things about this episode that just started driving me a little bonkers, but
That's good.
but I still love the episode. It just, after watching last week's episode, and maybe just because we went so in detail at how like amazing that episode was, it just didn't hold water to it to me. So maybe that's part of the reason. And you just, I mean, there's so many better
that's
episodes
true.
to come. I think season 4 has a bunch of good episodes. I think season 5 obviously has maybe the best episode in my opinion, but and then we have lots of season finales that hang up there too that we haven't even talked about. So this is I don't know. Maybe it's top 15, maybe it's top 20, maybe it's not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's also, it's not an episode that moves the plot forward. It's very entertaining, and there are definitely things in this episode that come up later.
Oh, yeah.
But you could miss it, and it would be fine in terms of understanding season 3 so far. I also wanted to thank our listeners for being patient with us. We are
Yes.
recording a little late, and what I posted on Facebook was that sometimes life gets in the way. I realized that could have sounded like something dire happened, but thankfully it wasn't something dire. Jim, do you want
Well,
to tell us what happened to you?
so I live in 2 states. It's very complex, but I do a lot of traveling between Pennsylvania and North Carolina, and I'll just say this. I stopped to get dinner on my way from Pennsylvania to North Carolina, and an 80-year-old who was texting, which I find very interesting, found her way into my car, not like breaking into my car, but running into my car. Caused a little bit of damage. But of course, when it's super late on a Friday night and there's a weekend, that can be, trying to find some place that's going to take in someone, with someone from the north. Thankfully, I have North Carolina license plates. But anyways, I ended up in this town in Bluefield, West Virginia. And all I can tell you is, you know, sometimes you'll walk into a town and you can tell immediately that you're not in the same rhythm as the town. And all
That's
I
such a
can say
nice way of putting it.
I everything, it just, I don't know, it sort of felt like nothing happened like what happened in the Deliverance, so I'm not trying to make that comparison, but I will tell you, I felt like I was in another world from what I'm used to. And it was one of those moments where every place that I would walk in, I would get silent stares as I would walk in. And I felt it was just the strangest place that I've ever been in. And not that's overstating it. One of the strangest places that I accidentally was in. I will say this to the people, and I can't remember the name of it, and I apologize, but to the people at the garage that took care of my car, hey, they came in on a Saturday and on a Sunday and fixed my car and got me out of there. So props to them for taking good care of me, but I'm pretty sure they were just trying to get me the hell out of there.
That's nice.
Yeah.
So-
There are so many great like science fiction short stories and films where somebody has car trouble and gets stuck in a town and the town gives them a weird vibe.
Oh, it was that.
And then it turns out that at night everyone is a troll
Like
or
From.
something.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
like from.
Well, see, and that's what, like, I did not leave. It got dark. I did not leave no, but there was no Wi-Fi. And the TV, it was a tube TV. Oh,
Oh my god.
Tube TV.
it was a tube TV. Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. I have not seen one of those in quite a while.
Well, and I didn't have a car, and so I'm walking. It literally was one of those. So if I was thirsty, and it was one of those outdoor motels, more like it than a hotel.
Yeah.
So to get anywhere, you had to go outside, and nope. If I needed a
monsters.
yeah. Well,
You
now
know
listen,
better. At
y'all.
this
If you're
point.
from Bluefield, West Virginia, everybody seemed wonderfully nice. I'm not trying to say anything. So, anyways, but it was creepy there. That's all I'm going to say about that.
So this delayed Jim being able to record with us, and we decided to be late rather than miss out on Jim's enthusiastic and wonderful presence. And we're really just mostly glad that he got home safely.
For sure.
Amen.
Yeah, Kara did a bunch of driving this weekend.
Oh,
also,
gosh. Yes.
I like maybe put 20 miles on my car, but you guys,
Texas. Texas is too big.
yeah,
She
you just drive for days and you're still in Texas.
she went a town over, and it took 8 hours.
It felt like a universe over. I'll tell you that.
New England is full of these little teeny tiny states, and there is a thing that happens to me all the time when I'm going to Providence, Rhode Island, is that I miss the exit and I'm like, oh, I'm in Connecticut. They're so close that you're just like,
funny.
oops, I went into another state. I'll just turn around. Like
There's a
you'll just-
stretch
yeah.
that this part of this drive on I-10, it's like a maybe 400 something mile stretch where there are 3 towns along the way that you can really stop at, and the speed limit's 80 miles an hour, and it's just ridiculous because one,
Is it flat and straight?
yes, for the most part, and then there are curves, and that's why there are more wrecks than you might think there, just because of how little there is to look at. It's a very monotonous drive. So I had my own personal sing-along to Taylor Swift that kept me awake. But it's a rough drive. But I was sitting there thinking about it, about how many states I could have driven through if I was in the Northeast, and how many different cities I could have stopped in instead of just like plains of Texas. It was special.
That's so
Very
fun.
special.
Should we get into it and talk about December 1998?
What a time. What a time. So, the number one song in the United States during this time when the episode was airing was I'm Your Angel by R. Kelly and Celine Dion. And I remember that song. Every time I read that, I'm just like, I wonder what Celine Dion thinks about that collaboration now.
What a weird pairing that is.
It really
I'm going to
is.
have to play that song later because I can't even imagine those two together.
It's interesting. I just pretend it's not R. Kelly, and then I don't feel bad listening to it. The number one song in the UK, it is Still Believe by Cher, going strong, and I think it's going to be that way for a little while.
Yeah.
I kept clicking to go forward, and it was Cher.
I saw on the internet today a little clip of Cher on like some talk show. And she says, yeah, my mom asked me when I was going to settle down and marry some rich man.
Yes!
And I said, Mom, I am a rich man.
I love that quote. I have that on a pillow
was so happy.
in my office. It's like needlepoint. It's such a good one.
Legend.
I don't know if
She's
I've
amazing.
actually seen that interview. I might need to look that up now. Oh, man. Good old Cher. The U.S. box office at this point in time, we are still loving our movies about insects. A Bug's Life is number one, followed by Ants at number two.
That's so weird.
Two movies mostly
never
about
saw either
ants.
of
Yeah,
them.
because
I did like A Bug's Life when I was
wasn't the
11.
The main character was an ant, right? In A Bug's Life.
Yeah,
I think it's
so.
an ant in both
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah,
And
and then
the-
the grasshoppers are the evil ones in A Bug's
Yeah.
Life. I remember that.
And then ants, I think, correct. I just have Sylvester Stallone playing in the back of my head. Was he in that?
I have
feel
no
like
idea.
I feel like my kids weren't born yet, so this is pre my kids. But I feel like Sylvester
see.
Stallone was in Ants.
It's Woody Allen, yes, Sharon Stone, Sylvester Stallone, Gene Hackman, Jane Curtin, Dan Aykroyd, Danny Glover, Jennifer Lopez, Christopher Walken. Good Lord.
And
What a
who do I
cast.
remember
A lot of
from
people.
that? Sylvester
Good
Stallone.
old Sly. He does have a very distinct voice.
That's true. All right. On this day, in a hard-edged 11-hour session, Republican members grilled President Bill Clinton's lawyer and witnesses on Tuesday, the day Buffy comes out, as the White House opened a spirited defense against the House Judiciary Committee's move to impeach the president. So, the Bill Clinton scandal going strong.
Oh, yeah.
There was a massacre that took place in Algeria, and I don't know if this is the name of the town, the Tajena massacre.
I believe it's the town.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and it resulted in the loss of 81 lives at the hands of armed groups as the Algerian civil war continues. In other news, AT&T Corp announced that it was buying IBM's data networking business for $5 billion cash, which is a lot of money, but sounds really cheap knowing now what that data business would be worth.
That's fair.
The first female ice hockey game in Olympic history was played. Finland beat Sweden 6-0.
Nice.
During the week of December 6, 1998, on December 6, 1998, good old Hugo Chavez was elected president of Venezuela, kicking off a very tumultuous period in Venezuelan history under his rule until 2012.
Straight to jail.
Yeah. December 11th, 1998, in a historic step toward removing Bill Clinton as president, the House Judiciary Committee approved 3 articles of impeachment on that Friday, accusing him of perjury and obstruction of justice in the Monica Lewinsky affair. And on December 12th, 1998, after weeks of partisan wrangling, the House Judiciary Committee Saturday completed its impeachment case against President Bill Clinton, approving a fourth and final article of impeachment and rejecting a Democratic proposal to censure the president instead. They came in on a Saturday. That's how bad they wanted to get that done.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I guess in hindsight, I just can't. I'll just leave that there. I'm not going to
Yeah.
add any.
We could have a whole episode about
I
impeachment
can't.
process of Bill Clinton.
I just.
This is not a lawyer podcast, despite
Or a
the
history
population.
podcast, even though we're all tempted.
It's 90s nostalgia,
Yeah.
not depressing history. Okay. So let's get into it. This episode, like I said, is often ranked among people's favorite episodes. And we get a new character in Anya or Anyanka. And it is very Cordelia-centric, at least the first half. I just love me some Dark Willow, so it's always been an episode I enjoy watching. And what do you guys think? What were your first thoughts? Jim, start us off.
Okay, so first off, anytime you get into any sort of alternate universe, I'm gonna love it. I've always loved it. So this alternate universe, we get to see, we do get to see Dark Willow, but we talked last week about how frumpy she's been made up to be. This is not that Willow, and if Ms. Hannigan got a chance to like breathe a little bit in that scene with Spike last week, this week she got to breathe a whole lot more because she turned on the sex appeal. They gave her clothing that definitely doesn't fit in with the Willow clothing of the past.
No.
So yeah, I mean, look, this was definitely a Cordy / really this was it really kind of turned into just kind of the alternate. Really, it wasn't an Anya episode, even though we get introduced to her. It really just turned into this, here's what could happen if. And I loved it, but I will tell you something. The thing that struck me at the end of watching it for a third time for this show is that Buffy not being in it until she was in it really hit me a different way this time. And I
you feel the absence, right?
Yes.
Like, hey, there's not enough Buffy.
Listen, I think she gets taken for granted in this show because she sometimes is playing, as weird as it sounds, she's kind of the straight person in this. She's kind of the fulcrum for everybody else to kind of get to be who they are. So these other characters get to stand out, including Giles. I think like Giles gets to play off of her, which I think makes all of us love Giles, including in this episode. But her not being there, it was just a whole different dynamic. And as I started paying more and more attention to it, I was like, ooh, I miss Buffy. I miss Sarah.
Yeah.
So anyways,
and I think that's narratively intentional to have you miss Buffy, to drive the point home.
Yes.
That without her, these people wouldn't have come together. They wouldn't gel the way that they have. Their personalities wouldn't sparkle. It's not just that the town would fall to vampires. It's also like these individual people don't get to be their best versions of themselves because Buffy brings that out in them. And you know, in the opening scene, you know, the hilarious nerf demon killing scene, they talk about faith, and Buffy says, you know, slaying is a hard gig, too much alone time isn't healthy. Yep. And then alternate Buffy, Dark Buffy, is like, I don't play well with others. And what happens to her? She dies. Yep. Like, it couldn't be a more clear message that, like, the teamwork and the support of the Scoobies is what makes Buffy a successful Slayer in a way that no other Slayer is.
But the alternate to that is without her, they're not cohesive either. Like, she holds them together.
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's really kind of fast. Okay, I'm going to start to love this show again. See, you're going to save me. It's going to move back up. See, the fascination of having the pull of the two, the group and her. And Giles is wonderfully what he again, there are parts of this episode that were strictly Giles. I love Giles. By the way, he's fantastic. Anyways, I say that about everybody. But
Also, his birthday today, Anthony Stewart. Happy birthday.
That's fun.
But I just love the dynamic of just having none of it feeling cohesive. And maybe that's what I was feeling today and why it started sliding down my rankings. But I digress.
Let's talk about Dark Giles, because one thing I really enjoyed about Dark Giles is that he wasn't in his tweed. He was wearing like regular person clothes. He wasn't all posh.
He had scruff.
And then he was scruffy and he was a little bit absent-minded. Like he was sort of flaky when people were talking to him, and definitely like pretty depressed. In his apartment, there were all kinds of pill bottles next to a crystal decanter of liquor, and I was like, what's in those bottles? Right? Is that like Xanax? Is it Valium? Like, what was the late 90s like prescription drug of choice?
I think
would it have
Valium
been
over Xanax.
benzos? Would it be uppers or down? He seems like a downers person.
It's true.
Definitely
So
in this
maybe
episode
Valium
for
or
sure.
something.
Yeah.
Ugh. He was depressed and angry. You know, he got so angry at that other watcher on the phone about Cleveland, which is it's hilarious for me to think about Cleveland as an alternate location for Buffy, because it's just like Cleveland.
Hey.
Like, would they go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and
Look. This is Cleveland is my hometown, so careful now. I was no, it's okay. But I was like, ooh, Buffy's in Cleveland, yay! But just a side note, she really got to Sunnydale fast. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, let's talk about it.
Okay.
I love the way she's introduced in the alternate universe, with Giles on the ground and, you know, struggling for his life, almost certainly about to get killed or captured. And we just see like suddenly vampires go flying, and then these like heavy boots and cargo pants come into the scene, and you know, she throws another body, and then Giles does the pan up, you know, he looks up at her because he's lying on the ground, and she's like, want to tell me what I'm doing here? All attitude. She's wearing like drab colors. She's got these like military looking cargo pants on, a very functional tank top. Her hair is in this like, you know, very businesslike braid. Like, that's not going to get caught on something when she's slaying, right? That's like, she's ready to fight. She's got this scar on her face that goes across her lips. And it was such an interesting choice to put the scar on her lips, because it is unavoidable. There's no way to mask that or cover that. That scar is always visible, right? Like if she had a scar on like her eyebrow or the side of her face or something, it could be sort of downplayed.
Yeah.
You have a scar across your mouth, that's it's the first thing they're gonna see about you. And it gave her this look of battle weariness. And she, you know, her attitude was poor. She was unfriendly and hostile, but still sassy. I loved when he was like, oh, we have to destroy the power center. And she's like, great, what's the power center? It was so funny. I was like, there's the Buffy we know. She's funny. But mostly she was like grim. When she went to the Bronze to look for the master and there were like human beings in cages, she just like walked around and was like, yep, I see what was happening here. Like there was no moment of compassion. Like the Buffy we know would have tried to save those people. But she was like on a mission, and it was all about killing the master.
Super jaded. Super jaded. I can't go too far without nerding out as an English major a little bit about this one. So that one line where Anyanka says, I had no idea her wish would be so exciting, Brave New World, referencing, you know, of course we think of Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, back, 1932, I think that one was written. But I also immediately jumped to the origin of the phrase Brave New World, which is thought to be, from Shakespeare's The Tempest, with the character Miranda saying it. And it's this kind of like sweet little moment of naivete where she has spent this majority of her life isolated from society, and she's introduced to all of these people and social interactions, and she has this real excitement for being exposed to more of humanity. And of course, as that goes on, her innocent outlook kind of starts to diminish, as most people's do once you are out in the real world, just like A Brave New World. And poor Cordelia, thinking that this world without Buffy would solve all of her problems, and slowly coming to realize that she has not in fact wished them into this utopia, but instead, what does she call it? Bizarro world. It's just this horrible dystopian place where she really, sees the true value of Buffy. But
I mean, the fashion alone.
Yes. Although I do love Harmony and all of her little minions, and I guess there's still the Cordettes.
They're like sort of
the Cordettes,
dark khaki and black little outfits were pretty chic.
I liked it. And, Cordelia is in this Come Bite Me outfit in bright blue. But it also, and I don't know how intentional it is either, but I could not stop thinking about It's a Wonderful Life while watching this episode.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
Freaking Cordelia. It also drives me crazy, I will say, just to get one little thorn out of the way. Harmony tells Cordelia that Xander and Willow are dead. Xander approaches her looking extra pale, and it takes her way too long to put together that he and Willow are vampires now. She's like, I thought you were dead. I was like, Cordy, come on.
Think it through.
You'll get there.
Yeah.
You could do it.
Especially when Willow shows up in the outfit. Mm-hmm. She should be like, oh, y'all are vampires. Because she even mentions it. She's like, what's with you and the leather? And it's like, think it through.
She's just more focused on the fact that they are still together in this world. And
that would be horrible.
Yeah, like I can see why she takes a beat. She also has a lovely little racist moment as she's trying to find her car. That one was fun.
Yeah, she's racist to the gardener,
which
groundskeeper.
Also, did you guys have a thought as to why they aren't allowed to drive? Because if they want them to be home before dark, wouldn't that be the fastest way to get all of them?
They probably
home?
Have a lot of restrictions on them because they don't want them having the freedom to, skip out on curfew, right? So it's like, everybody get on the bus at the end of school and go home.
Yes, that's true.
Like, there's not room for them to, mess around.
Yeah.
I mean, what a depressing way to have high school with,
seriously, my thought...
no evening activities.
I was like, what is the rest of the world like then? If all of these people are so content to stay living in Sunnydale when it's like this and these vampires are basically running the show, what's the next town over looking like? What's LA looking like?
It's unclear whether everyone's been killed or people have moved away in that one scene where the classroom only has 4 kids in it.
Yeah. And what did they have? They said the next day was the monthly memorial service, so there was no class.
Yeah.
I was like, damn. You think Sunnydale
so many people get killed.
High's death count is high now. But apparently they've just wiped out that entire generation. Practically.
And yeah, I gotta wonder at the parents who haven't left town or sent their kids away.
Right.
Just how negligent or unloving are you as a parent, or are you in on it? Are you part of the corrupt demon-feeding society here in Sunnydale, and you just willingly let your kids be sacrificed to it? That's nice.
I mean, you never know. That would fit
It's
along
entirely
kind
possible.
of with this whole Brave New World aspect, too.
Yeah, really, really sad.
Gosh, I do love the return of the Master, though. I still see him as either Niedermeyer in Animal House or the Master. Like, sometimes they blend together, but it's just, I love watching him in this. And I did enjoy the Master as a villain, and I like that we see him pop up, a couple more times.
Yeah.
But I just wish we would have seen, I don't know, maybe Jesse, a little callback from season 1. I don't know, maybe Jesse with Buffy not being there, never got killed by the Master, got killed some other way.
Who knows?
There's so many what ifs that you could go down in this universe. I'm assuming Kendra is alive and well.
Yeah.
And never was called.
Yep,
Yeah.
and Faith.
She's not a Slayer.
Most likely.
Yeah.
I wonder how that's going. So those are, some positives.
The
I
lack
guess.
of faith in this episode. She obviously had to have something else going on to not be in this episode, because she really would have fit well in this episode. Maybe it just was because Giles was so sad because he was embedded there as a librarian to eventually be Buffy's watcher, and clearly that never happened. And he just had his saddle sweater on and was part of the White Hats, I think their group was called.
Yeah. I
With,
did love that.
yeah.
Larry stepping in Oz.
And a girl named Nancy, who we've never seen before, which again, like, it would have been a perfect spot for Faith or any numerous females that have been part of the.
No.
Except Faith lives in Massachusetts, so why would she have come to
That's a good
Sunnydale
point.
if she's not
That's
the
a good point.
Slayer? So
Okay.
Nancy is gonna show up in another episode. She goes to Sunnydale High.
Oh yeah.
We'll see her in a few weeks. But I enjoyed the White Hats as well. I thought that, yes, of course, Oz would end up being a White Hat. I think it would have been really fun if Devin had been there too.
Aw, that would have been
Devin
nice.
is such a dumbass. I would have
Devin.
really enjoyed seeing him try to deal with, weapons and
Or
perimeters.
Jonathan.
And
Jonathan,
all of it.
yeah.
I would have loved that. I feel so every time they, in the opening scene where they're making fun of Cordelia and they part and tell her that, basically she should date Jonathan now. And he's with that big, it's not a big gulp. They had to change it, whatever it is actually in the episode, but it's a big gulp.
It's almost as big as he is.
He just looks up. That poor guy. I was just like, leave Jonathan alone. Spoiler alert.
They're
it's
so mean to
important.
him.
And he just sits there sipping on his drink the whole time. It's just
So mean to him.
drinking his huge. It was called a huge glug, by the way.
There
don't
you
wanna-
go. Not a
Huge
big
glug.
gulp.
Nice.
The huge glug.
Nice. That's hilarious.
They're just
Oh my
Such
god.
terrible friends to Cordelia. They're not really her friends,
They're
obviously.
horrible girls.
But it just, I don't know. And I feel bad for Cordelia. I feel bad for Oz. Oz was clearly very hurt. But I think we've also discussed and established how Willow really did get swept up with Xander and does seem to truly love and care about and value Oz. Whereas Xander, just kind of,
Yeah.
like, all right, well, no more of that anymore. And then that scene at the beginning, the Nerf demon scene, where he's basically venting about how it's kind of their fault that they walked in on them and they didn't even knock. And obviously he's kidding, but I don't really think he's 100% joking. He is frustrated that they got caught. It's replacing the guilt. He's not feeling that bad.
He's defensive
for hurting
and
her.
He's not thinking about it from her perspective at all.
And I'm just like,
and Buffy
Xander,
says it best
empathy.
when she says,
Your logic does not resemble our Earth logic.
Yep. I did like how she playfully called him out because that's just painful.
I love how she is loving and honest at the same time, like her mother, right? Like, she didn't say that to Xander in a way that was like, I'm not friends with you anymore. I don't love you.
Right.
It's like, you're wrong about this thing.
Ugh.
Like,
And
just so you know.
she's still his friend. she still treats him the way she treats Xander. She's that constant in his life. She's not going anywhere the same way that mom treats, say, Spike. But but she never lets him. She's the friend who never lets you go past where you're supposed to go in her presence. She always kiboshes it, always. And she's done it 2 or 3 times in the past couple of weeks. I love that. Part of my angst with this episode was Xander really throughout the whole thing. Again, I go back and forth with him, but he was really in the normal Xander parts of this episode. He was just the worst of the worst. The scene in the bronze where he was touching her hand and she's like, stop it. Like, just stop it. Well, that's what friends do. They touch digits. Like, no, dumbass, they don't touch digits. Like, don't touch any digits. Don't, just stop. And she says that.
First of all, she said stop. That should be the end of the conversation.
Correct. Yeah.
Secondly, you should know better. Yep. You know that she wants to get Oz back.
Cordelia's right there.
Yeah.
She's right.
Well, he wants to hurt Cordelia.
Yeah. Oh, that fake and the
Such
fake laughing, which I didn't think was. I think they did that because they wanted it to be funny. That was not funny. Like, I was like, oh, ew.
It was sad.
Yeah,
it was really painful.
It was really, really.
And
sad.
also, Cordelia is 10 times better at that game than Xander is. When she has, who is it? What's his name? I'm drawing a blank. Check to see if something's in her teeth.
John Lee.
She's maneuvering her head in a way that it looks like they're kissing from afar. And when she's laughing at the bronze, she looks like she's actually enjoying herself and having fun. And Xander looks childish and pathetic.
Yeah.
And it's just so cringy.
Yeah.
I don't want to shit too much on
painful.
Xander, but this is not a good Xander episode.
No. And I gotta say, I like Nicholas Brendan most of the time. I think he's a pretty good actor.
Mm-hmm.
He's not as good as some of the other people on the show, but you know, he delivers the humor really well.
Yes.
But Dark Xander, I find not that interesting at all. It's like, yeah, whatever. He served his purpose. It's fine. But Dark Willow was like a lightning bolt. She was so interesting and sexy and scary and funny. She was everything.
You know, you just you almost described her the same way I described Spike in the last episode, which is funny because there was a little bit of that there. And I just
the swagger.
Yeah. Yes. She just, every scene she was in, she took it by the cojones and just ran with it. And almost like she's been waiting for it. And what I liked about this, and again, we'll talk, I'm sure, in the spoilers about Dark Willow, but this is a whole different Dark Willow, right? Like this is a whole different thing. Like her with Angel in this episode. Again, Angel and Giles have this strange parallel of like, I'm supposed to be here for Buffy, but there's no Buffy. They knew about Buffy, but there's no Buffy. They were kind of the same character without Buffy, which made them depressed and sad. And then you had Willow kind of fitting in the seams, taunting both of them. The scene where
you're in a big cave.
Yeah. In one of the most
puppy. It's just so...
I was like, and again, I had forgotten. I'm like, who is the puppy? Who is that laying on the floor? And I'm like, oh
man, it's
Angel. That's Angel. Because there was a small part of me that thought it was gonna be Spike.
Yeah,
but it wasn't. Like, and I knew it wasn't. But but I had completely forgotten how little Cordy ends up being in this episode. That was shock when that happened. I was like, oh, I remember that. I know what's gonna happen in this episode now, because I was like, what the. Yeah, that was a scene, and they just Cordy. Anyways,
that was fast. She did not last very long.
Which was again that isolationist point of what happens to this team when she had to die first. Almost, I mean, she's the one who broke the team up essentially.
Can you imagine what was going through her head as she has wished herself into this Buffy-less universe in Sunnydale, and she is being killed by Willow and Xander. Which
simultaneously and like kind of
sexually 100%.
While Giles is forced to watch.
Yeah, that was,
which is so dark.
What did he say? You're a watcher. Watch this. I was like,
watch this.
No.
Yeah. It's so.
This
Oh
episode
my
overall,
God.
I mean, when you really start to think about it, is incredibly depressing. It's nice and haha because we get out of it and,
Yeah.
we move on. But it is so sad to actually sit there and think about. And, Buffy doesn't really mention her mom, if she's that hardened. Was Joyce killed? Were her parents still together? Did they both die? Did they still get divorced? Just thinking about all of the things that could have happened that we don't see, that led her to develop this, hardened exterior, because she's even more far gone than Faith is when we first see Faith. And
Yeah.
I cannot imagine.
There's something about her that makes me pretty sure her mother is dead at this point.
Yeah.
There's no love left in her.
The light's gone from her eyes. And that is a huge testament to Sarah Michelle Gellar's acting, because the way she plays it, it really does seem like an entirely different person. I feel like she does not get enough credit for her acting.
She also is not that good at slaying. When she goes into the factory, the fact that she doesn't take out the master with that first crossbow bolt is like embarrassing for her. Like, she should have been more strategic. She should have made that shot. She should have at least had some kind of plan with Angel. Like, she just created chaos where lots of people got killed.
So I'm gonna millennial out for a second, because this really truly reminds me of Harry Potter, in that Harry's strength, something that Voldemort didn't have, was his ability to love, his human connections with people he cared about. And Buffy, we see that, contrast with her and Faith. Buffy has her family. She has her, her real family, her biological family with her mom and her dad, and she has her chosen family with the Scoobies and Giles, and that gives you something to fight for. And that's a strength of hers that we see time and time again. Her human connections and her relationships with other people give her strength. And this Buffy, who just seems to be out there killing vampires, almost in, there's a lot of assembly line inferences, I guess you could make in this episode, because of the literal assembly line you see. And then Buffy is just like, I kill vampires. I see vampires. I kill vampires. I stab people. Like, I stab demons in the heart. It seems to work. Like, she is just going about her business and getting things done. And I think that's one of the biggest differences in Buffy from Cleveland, that never came out to Sunnydale, and Buffy as we know her, is that she just doesn't have that fight in her, because she doesn't have her people.
And the creativity and the compassion and the way that she creates alliances with her ability to be compassionate, the Cleveland Buffy, the dark Buffy, she doesn't even want to have any alliances. Like,
no.
she when Angel, her one ally, is killed in front of her, she doesn't even blink. She just walks right through his dust.
Which is crazy to see.
It's so weird. But it's also like the reason that she loses, because she doesn't, like you said, she doesn't have her connections, and those connections support her literally sometimes in the fighting and in the research and in the preparation and the weapons and the strategy, but they also infuse her with other points of view, new ideas, reason to fight, creative ways of approaching things. There's all this other aspects of Buffy that are sort of dead when she doesn't have her friends. That Buffy was a shadow.
When she says slaying's not a solitary gig in this episode, it's just, and it's something. Her fight is never the friendship fight. That's the part of her life that keeps her grounded, that she misses having more time doing. She misses her friendships. She misses spending time with her family. She misses getting a chance to maybe go to college and build those relationships. She misses all of that. And I think one of the intrinsic battles of this series is that battle of her having a life while having this calling that she can't get away from, that there's always that constant pull of one of her friends maybe trying to get her away from it. And we get to see that there's none of the deadness that you were talking about. You get to see that so much in this episode with her when she enters the fray. There's none of that. It's literally kill the thing in front of me to kill the thing in front of me, because I'm going to get that guy to kill him so I can get the hell out of here and I guess go back to Cleveland. But
And then kill some other things.
yeah, like
it's
there's no
it's
bond.
a sad existence.
When she first talks to Angel, you get that little flicker of, oh, she knows. Oh no,
Yeah.
she's gonna be a little bit sarcastic with him, and off they go. No connection at all. He was just a vehicle to get to the bronze. That's all he was. It was heartbreaking to see. It was again, Sarah Michelle Gellar. Oh yeah,
she's so good.
So I think I get so caught up in, Angel's my favorite character and Spike's my next. But the thing about this episode that I didn't like was we didn't get Buffy. I mean, we got Buffy, but we didn't get Buffy. So
We didn't get enough Buffy.
Yeah.
I enjoy the scene between her and Giles for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But, Giles says,
Why not just put a stake through her heart?
She's not a vampire.
Well, you'd be surprised how many things that'll kill.
I don't want to kill her, Miss Summers. I want to reverse whatever effect she's had on this world.
You're taking an awful lot on faith here, Jeeves.
Giles.
Kill the bad fairy, destroy the bad fairy's power center, whatever. And all the troubles go away.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's not that simple, but...
The world is what it is. We fight, we die. Wishing doesn't change that.
I have to believe in a better world.
Go ahead. I have to live in this one.
it's that I have to live in this one. In this world, she doesn't even have time to consider a life.
No.
It's only darkness and fighting. I again am thinking a lot about the fifth season of Fargo and Juno Temple's character. And, I had posted at one point on Facebook, like, I think that Juno Temple's character, Dot Lion, would have made a great Slayer because she's resourceful and creative and brave and scrappy. But also because, like Buffy, she has love in her heart and a reason and a desire to spread that love and to love other people. And this Buffy without love is
so depressing.
She's a side character.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't you think though, and as you were saying that, isn't this version of Buffy in this alternate universe, isn't that more what the Watchers other than Giles want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what Kendra was, except not as dark.
Yeah.
Right? She was like, I follow the rules. I don't talk to boys. I don't have any friends. I don't live with my family anymore. And, if Kendra went through some stuff, this is how she would be. If, after a couple of years, like Buffy's been a Slayer for a couple of years, and that's where this path leads you. And most Slayers die before they even turn 18. Yeah. So the Watchers Council has set up slaying. Like, they made these rules, and they've guided all these Slayers to not have a life and not have connections and not have love and to just be focused on the fight. And clearly it's the wrong way to go. Most of their Slayers die right away.
I mean, on paper it makes sense. It makes sense on paper.
Focus.
You don't want to have connection because then you can't have someone held over your head. You can't
and you won't be distracted.
Correct. Yeah. So, and you can see Faith is on this path, the same path. The things that saves her is she sees Buffy and craves what Buffy has. And I think for a while this season so far, she's sort of skirting along the line with Buffy, almost wanting to be
I think that
Buffy.
Yeah, the episode Revelations. Up until that point, I think she was like, oh my God, I can join this group.
Yeah.
And this could be my family. And then when they had the meeting without her and she was like, I'm not her friend. And then she had that big fight with Buffy where Buffy beat the crap out of her face. She was like, oh, see, I was wrong. You can never have a family. I'm never going to have a connection with anyone. People suck. And now she's on her guard with the group. That's why she's not around.
Yeah.
You know, she's like off doing her own thing because she felt betrayed by that and it ruined her idea of connecting with them.
Well, and it's like that, you know, I think
it's
we
a trauma thing.
Yeah, I was going to say trauma response.
Black and white thinking.
She's isolating now. It's that defensive isolation that, you know, it's many people do. And I think we talked about it when we talked about the introduction of Faith. That is one of her trauma responses, that hyper independence. And she let herself, just for a moment, like let her guard down and have hope that she was going to be accepted into their gang. And now it's like she's gone and not looking back because she doesn't want to get hurt again. And one thing, I guess this is not entirely spoilery, but we do get an indication when we are introduced to Kendra that she had been training to be a Slayer before she ever got the call. Mm-hmm. So there's, you know, at least something out in the universe indicating that there could be a way of knowing who is in that lineage, who is down the Slayer line. And I could see that being more helpful than when you have a situation like Buffy or Faith. If you are raised your whole life in anticipation of this and you're trained to fight, as opposed to you are all of a sudden a normal teenage girl and then bam,
you get yanked out of that life.
Like you now have a calling and find out vampires are real and are responsible for patrolling and protecting, who knows, cities, regions. Just, that's so much crushing weight that if you don't have someone to fall back on, then what do? I would assume.
You crumble. And they all die before they turn 18.
Ugh,
I mean, it's
awful.
It's not a long-lived position. And I have this thing about how much I hate the Watchers Council. I hate them. I hate their policies. I hate the way they run things. I hate the way they treat Buffy.
And
we
Giles.
haven't spent very much time with them yet, but we will as the series goes on. But even to this point, we know that they withhold information from the Slayer, right? She never knows the whole story. And they, you know, exploit these young women without any seeming compensation, right?
Oh,
Buffy should be getting paid. Giles gets paid. They don't have the respect to reach out to Buffy's parents. Like when they called her when she was 15,
right?
Like at no point did the Watchers Council think maybe we should tell her parents about this. Like it's freaking criminal.
Even Muggleborns get a visit from Dumbledore or other Hogwarts officials when they go to Hogwarts to explain this new world that they're entering into. And it's just, the freaking Watchers Council is, we could do a whole episode on.
Same with Jedis.
Yes.
This sort of rings of like the Jedi Council.
Yeah.
The dark side.
Oh, I never understood the whole, like, you shouldn't have any attachments.
Yeah.
Like, that's a great way to create a psychopath.
Yeah.
Give them lots of power and then make sure they don't love anyone. Like, what?
Oh, yeah.
Although, side note, when Anakin does fall in love with somebody, it does impact him a bit.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's a whole different.
That went badly.
Yeah.
Well, and in fairness, he wasn't told the whole story either. He was told lies. So
that is true.
Yeah, he was manipulated into that.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
All right. There is a Star Wars podcast on the Podcastica Network for people who want to get really into all the Jedi talk. So I suggest you go check that out, especially when Andor season 2 comes out.
Oh.
That's going to be fantastic.
They're great.
Good.
They're so good.
I love Andor so
yeah, that's a
hard.
great episode.
I bought myself a Mon Mothma action figure, and I'm in love with her.
That's nice.
Anyway, have we talked about all the dark versions of characters? Dark
No,
Giles.
but we really should talk about. We haven't talked about Anya at all. We really need to talk about
Oh
her, right?
yeah,
That's true.
let's get into Anya.
Anya.
Yes. I love the introduction of Anya via Harmony, right?
Yeah.
Her father bought a utility or something. It's just such a like shallow, vapid, rich girl way to talk about someone. Harmony is such a pure character. I love Harmony. Love Harmony.
Oh yeah.
And
Especially
Anya,
Harmony later on.
Anya presents as just a pretty girl who's probably wealthy. She's got nice clothes, but she's not ostentatious. She's not like, over the top. Like in that scene, Cordelia is wearing a red leather head to toe outfit, right?
Which
is dressed.
is fire. When she pulls up and gets out of the car in that outfit, I was just like, get it, Cordelia.
But I was also like, this is not a high school student.
Of course not. She is a grown-ass woman walking into that school.
And I'm sorry, but the reaction that she got, I get it. It's a TV show. Oh no, I'm sorry.
No.
That is not the reaction she was going to be getting if she was walking down. Listen, that was, that was
true.
That outfit was hot, and all of those guys would have been like falling at her feet.
So good. But no, she does not look like a high school student. This is one of those episodes in particular where it's just like, no, you're grown. That's
that outfit.
That's not
that
a
outfit
teenager.
in particular. That is a grown woman's outfit. That is a woman who is going to like,
I love it.
I don't know, a chic nightclub or something. That is not a high school girl. But anyway, Anya, I was trying really hard to remember what it was like to watch this episode when I didn't know that Anya was Anyanka.
Scared the shit out of me.
oh
Because
god.
she turns and she's so scary. Yeah.
Yep. I will never forget that. I think I had a nightmare after this episode from her like done and her face getting all veiny.
Oh,
Yeah, it's like a flashbulb memory. It affected me a lot when I was like 11.
I wish Buffy Summers had never come to Sunnydale. She was like a good fairy, a scary, veiny, good fairy.
I love it.
She's not a good fairy, Cordelia.
No. Nope. Ugh.
I love
That's
that
so
line
funny.
because Cordelia is just, in that moment, she's so focused on her own pain still that, I mean, you can tell at a glance that this is not a better world that she's
Right?
wished herself into. But she's like a scary, veiny, good fairy. I'm like, "Ugh." Like, I would be freaking out.
It's like
Is
read
they-
the
is they-
room.
is they pan across like the school and there's like papers like wafting across and
Yeah, like dead leaves everywhere and like nobody's there.
Mhm.
It's like empty. And she's like, ooh, a world without Buffy. I'm like,
Right?
girl.
That's just, I do love too that, she sees the amulet, the necklace that Anya is wearing and thinks it's Prada. And I was
Gucci,
just like,
Gucci.
that's Gucci, because it does look like Gucci.
It
That's
does.
right. And then she says most people can't tell Prada from Payless. That's what it is. But it does look like a Gucci necklace. And
Yeah.
I did have a little tangent going on Etsy to see if I could find a replica amulet.
It's really beautiful.
It is
so
really pretty. And it got destroyed in this episode. But I love that is what, Anyanka, has adjusted as time has gone on to how to relate to these scorned women. And so she bonds with Cordy over luxury goods. She's very,
she starts with fashion and then moves on to men. And it's funny because in my memory of the episode, I forgot that there's like time that passes that Anya is friends with Cordelia for a couple of days before the wish happens. Like, I had sort of forgotten about that, like the scene of them at the bronze and everything. And Anya is doing a great job of blending in and looking like a typical like teenage girl and hanging out with the other. Well, I mean, she also doesn't really look like a teenager, but
True.
She yeah, I had just forgotten that she spends time getting closer and closer to Cordy until she gets that wish. I do remember the first time watching it that I was like, hey, that's Brandon's girlfriend from 90210.
Yeah.
But I don't remember my reaction to the reveal of her being evil. I guess you should always assume any new character is either about to die or is some kind of monster when they come on the show. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, if they get a name.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had no idea that she was going to be a regular eventually on the series.
Right.
Like they even play her. They start. Yeah. Well, that seems to kind of run it. They just keep running into these characters. Did she date Brandon? I thought it was Steve. Maybe it was both.
No, she definitely dated Brandon.
Yeah, I thought it was
Steve's the blonde one.
Yeah, I thought they.
No,
dated.
she definitely dated Brandon. She was like a type A. She was on the college paper with him. Like, you know,
I remember
at first they didn't get along and they fought, but then
I do think she ends up with Steve though, doesn't she?
No, I think you're confusing her with Kathleen Robertson, who has a kind of similar look, and she dated the Steve character. I can't believe I'm remembering 90210 as well.
That was one of those shows that I caught here and there, but definitely never went all the way through.
I had a group of friends in college that 90210 was on Wednesday nights, and we had a regular Wednesday make your own pizza, Boboli, you know, those Boboli pizza crusts.
Oh yeah,
We would have Boboli and 90210 night, and we would watch.
Nice.
We would make pizza, and then we would all watch 90210 together, and you know, we would keep up with Melrose Place just because of the ads that would play during 90210. We didn't actually watch Melrose Place. And the Ian Ziering character, Steve, looks so much like this good friend of ours named Aaron. And it became kind of like a drinking game that whenever Ian Ziering was on the screen, we would all go, "It's Aaron! It's totally Aaron!" It's dumb, but it was fun.
Those are
and
fun.
I have, therefore, really warm, fuzzy feelings about 90210, even though it's a fairly stupid show.
I mean, look,
That's
come on.
fantastic.
That's our Gen X show, right? I mean, come on.
Oh,
Come
man.
I am enjoying very much the Shannon Doherty podcast, by the way. I mentioned it before because she had Sarah Michelle Gellar on, but it's really great. She's having all these people on that she's worked with, and they're talking about their projects, and she just released the second half of her interview with Kevin Smith, and they're talking all about Mallrats and like all the production history around Mallrats, and it's feeding my 90s indie movie lover heart.
Nice
to listen to it. It's great.
And I love that she's found a voice. She hasn't had one for a long time, and I think a lot of people assumed that she didn't have a lot of friends in Hollywood, and it turns out, oops, maybe the narrative doesn't quite fit the actual picture. Which I'm really happy that she has found this avenue, and a lot of these people. We're really going off on a tangent here, but I love the podcast very, very much, and I just it's one of those things. Like if you had a recommendation for a non-podcastica thing, that would be a great one because she's especially at this stage of her life. I think this has been a great thing for her.
Yeah,
but
she's in a truth-telling phase of her life, and she's just not like willing to bullshit anymore. I always really liked Shannon Doherty, and I was sad when they wrote her off of Charmed, and I always wanted her to do more. I mean, we'll be covering Heather's on this podcast in a couple of weeks, so we can have a lot of Shannon Doherty love when that happens, because Heather's and Shannon Doherty.
Oh yeah,
iconic.
Speaking of love,
yeah,
I cringe so hard whenever Willow licks Angel. I cannot imagine how they got through some of the scenes in this episode with how different everything is. And then on top of that, just, I don't know. There's so many scenes that make you stop and go, oh my God, like Oz killing Willow. And Buffy not even flinching when Angel's killed. And the Master killing Buffy and fulfilling the prophecy again. Just a little bit later this time. Like,
and the look when he kills Buffy, the dead look on her face.
Yes. It's like so she'd given up almost. Like, just like, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talk about Twilight a lot, but there's a scene in Twilight, there's a battle scene in Twilight in the final movie where this one character, when the vampires are running at him to kill him, he just goes, it's played by Christopher Heyerdahl, and he just like stands there and he says, finally.
Is that Caius or is that a different one?
Yeah, that's is Gaius the one played by Jamie Campbell Bower?
I can't remember.
It's one of the three Volturi vampires anyway,
like, and it's paper thin.
It's one of my favorite moments in that whole movie because he's just like, I've been alive for like 9,000 years. It's time, just take me. And that's kind of what the look was on Buffy's face. Like, finally, this horrible life that I live that is so dark and horrible is over.
Like, it's so depressing.
It really is. Sad.
They do a great job. There are some very light, entertaining moments, but overall, when you really sit back and think about it, it's a lot. And how integral Buffy is to the Scoobies and how, they influence her life for the better. And it makes me really happy when we get to see them back together.
Yeah, but I mean, it all goes, I mean, so it's a really quick domino, right? Like everything, they're finally sort of working together, but not really. And then we go through that. Angel saves Buffy, but dies while it happens. Then Buffy, I think right after that, kills Xander. Followed really quickly by Oz killing Willow. And then we get that juxtaposition of Giles versus the amulet while Buffy and the Master are walking together. And I'm
it's
like,
beautifully edited with like progressively shorter and shorter clips to build the tension and the music.
You're praying that he gets that amulet first. Praying because I just every time.
Go.
Yeah, every time I watched it, I'm like, please get there first. I don't want to, I saw it. Dang it.
Yeah.
And it's just,
you think that he's going to save Buffy's life.
Yeah.
And he doesn't.
He doesn't.
It is dark.
And I mean, look, and I know we're in the serious talk, but I forgot how much I missed the red stains around the Master's mouth.
Oh yeah, the fruit punch mouth.
The fruit punch mouth. I just I loved that as it got to that peak, those scenes where we just watched the Scooby Gang just completely crumble apart. So the last person standing is Giles, which I guess makes sense. It makes me a little bit happy, but
it escalates so quickly.
Yeah. Oh
yeah. It's the music too. It's so creepy with the vocalization. Kind of reminds me, there's a lot of that kind of vocalization in the Yellow Jackets score that is lightly in the background, and it's always real creepy. I like it.
It is a very powerful end scene.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that Giles was able to reverse it. I don't know.
And that he had the faith to do it, right? Like this depressed, drug abusing, alcohol using, sweater wearing Giles had the wherewithal to take that huge risk.
He could have written Cordelia off completely, coming in there yelling and talking about Buffy. He didn't have to follow up on that. But I think that also goes to show how good his instincts are and how inherently talented he is in this arena and being a watcher. And thank God for Giles, because that would have been real bleak.
Yeah.
If they got stuck that way.
I love him sort of coming
they all
out
died,
of his,
so.
Well, they all died. But I loved sort of watching Giles, Jeeves, come out of that fog as he notes that, I still sort of have the watcher in me. And I do love his development. I loved I we talked about Willow already, but there were just little parts of this. The you go way back to the beginning. Like Cordelia really does continue kind of to shine. We get to see her kind of juxtaposed, her trying to be strong versus all of the negative, to the point where we get the goofy kind of, I wish all of this was going away. But we've got to talk about this alternate universe, like
Yeah.
this motif that why I love this episode, maybe a little more yesterday than I did today, but why I love this is from jump, I think probably the first, like, from my memory, the first great alternate universe episode of any TV show, maybe to this day for me, is Mirror Mirror from Star Trek, where we get
Oh,
this
yeah.
dark version
with the
of-
beards.
yes, where you have Kirk as this like psychopath, and Spock is like his henchman murderer, but still has his common sense. They play again. I guess every time,
And
I'm
they
on
all
this
wear sparkly belts.
yeah, they sparkly belts, and Kirk has that like vest on to like show off his like 60s muscles, and um
60s muscles.
you know, basically his dad bod, but in the 60s he looked like Hercules, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Ahura was a little sexier, and Sulu had the scar on his face. This was definitely, listen, it's obvious that JW loves Star Trek, because a lot of the motifs from Star Trek you're getting to see played. And I think The Wish holds up. I don't, I've not looked at any rankings of alternate reality episodes, but this is what you do with an alternate reality episode, right? Like, you have an opportunity in this alternate reality to do all the things, because
They are so much fun.
yeah, and at the end
And
of the
because
day,
it's not a commitment, so just play and have fun and go as crazy as possible.
So let's
have you guys seen Community? There's
Yes.
there's an amazing episode of Community
Yes.
where they have several different timelines.
yes.
And there's the darkest timeline. I kept thinking, like, this is the
classic.
darkest timeline. And I just wanted Donald Glover to, like, walk in with a pizza and be like, what happened?
That's fantastic. It would have been appropriate. Totally would have fit.
Yeah.
But
Listeners, if you haven't watched Community,
oh,
I feel sad for you.
It's a good one.
It's really fun.
but I love that. I love that they did it, and they it's not that there wasn't fun in this episode. There's some fun. Buffy.
There's definitely some humor.
The little
and
quote
joking.
about Buffy's name. That name is striking fear into nobody's
Oh
hearts.
yeah, that was funny.
Weird thing. Girl kept talking about Buffy. Gotta get Buffy here. Isn't that what they called the Slayer?
Buffy, ooh, scary.
Someone has to talk to her people. That name is striking fear in nobody's hearts.
Oh man.
They picked the name Buffy because it was the least aggressive, scary, intimidating name that they could think of.
Yeah.
For the character. It was meant to be just as soft and unthreatening as possible.
Yeah, and I love that they dived into that here, and I love that they gave Willow the sex appeal in this episode,
Yeah.
and they allowed Allison Hannigan an opportunity to kind of spread her wings. And I know that they probably had this tracked out. For spoilers later, I'll just save it for there. But I think this is one of those series where the leadership, past not only JW but everybody else that we've talked about, gets to maybe throw some things against the wall with some of these characters so that they can maybe enhance future episodes. Because to me, this started off a Cordy episode, got rid of her, and it turned into just this mishmash of, here, let's have this person do this and that person do that. And I just absolutely, that's the part of this that I loved. I love that all the constraints are taken off. We killed the whole entire Scooby gang except for Giles. And we can, again, in a series that's heading in a certain place in season 3 that ended where it ended, with last week's episode with Lover's Walk, we get this very much a standalone episode, but again, in all their standalones, that does have impact in the future episodes. We get a brand new character that obviously has a major part going forward. But they really, again, I think this holds up in anybody's top 10 alternate universe episodes. I absolutely love it. I love, by the way, if you ever have watched the show Sherlock, there's an ironic alternate universe episode where, because Sherlock, of course, is in present day. Their alternate universe episode is when they're the Sherlock.
They
Holmes.
go to the original Sherlock time.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It was I feel like it was a special. It wasn't. It was almost like the Doctor Who special episode.
Oh, it wasn't part of the regular season. Maybe
no,
I missed it.
I think it was like a 2-hour episode, and I think it was the Hounds of the Baskervilles. I can't remember for sure, but it was absolutely fabulous. Where
I gotta look for that.
We get to see
Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock is one of the greatest performances on TV this millennium. It's fantastic.
He is brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it rocketed him into stardom. It's the reason we all know his name. I love that people can say like Bumblebee Kumquat, and everyone's like, "You mean Benedict Cumberbatch?" Like,
yeah. Oh, gosh, I will say too. We did kind of touch on the beginning of the episode how Xander is downplaying the breakup and being defensive about it and wanting to put blame everywhere but on himself and Willow. But I love Oz and his emotional maturity again at work in this episode, because Willow, of course, wants to talk to him, and he basically tells her, I said I needed space. Like, I'm sorry this is hard for you, but I told you what I need, so I can't help feeling like the reason you want to talk is so you can feel better. And I love how he just...
This is the best quotes in any series.
I clipped this audio and I titled it Oz being mature.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oz, wait, please.
It's just
what I did. When I think that I hurt you.
Yeah, you said all this stuff already.
Right, but I want to make it up to you. I mean, if you let me, I want to try.
Just... You can leave me alone. I need to figure things out.
But maybe if we talk about it, we could...
Look, I'm sorry this is hard for you. But I told you what I need. So I can't help feeling like the reason you want to talk is so you can feel better about yourself. That's not my problem.
seriously though.
Again, they should show Oz behavior in like teenage like sex ed classes. Like, here's how you navigate relationships. This is the mature way to respond.
It's the irony that he has this running theme throughout the series about Oz being kind of a man of few words and not really being that chatty, but he has the best communication skills out of all of them, and the way he expresses that to her, and it's not harsh or cruel, but it's direct and blunt at the same time. Just like, Oz.
Yeah,
and it's
pretty
true.
Fantastic.
It's wonderful. He and Xander, it's just the
polar opposites.
Yeah, watching his reaction and how he's handling all of this. Xander is behaving more like you would expect someone to behave if they were the ones who had gotten cheated on, if they were the ones who had been betrayed or wronged. Yeah,
it's not a pretty look to turn around and blame the person you cheated on for catching you. Like, that goes right up there with the apologies that are like, I'm sorry that you're hurt, that like that you got offended by something.
I'm sorry you took it that way.
Yeah.
Well, even if he was jesting, like that's no, you've caused this. You've caused this. So you don't get, that's not something you get to joke about, especially with the person who you were with when you caused this. It's not okay. Like, it's not okay. Yeah. So Willow and he are friends, and I can respect their desire to maintain the friendship. But there's a way that you can go about doing that. And she says it to him. she says it like, I need to be strong, Willow. There's that one quote that she has that's really nice. And she's doing the things she needs to do, and still finding a way to respect Xander's friendship. And I know that's probably, maybe
she creates a boundary that's about touch.
Yeah.
And it's clear and it's understandable, and she gives the reason for it. She wants to prove to Oz that she puts him first, and the only way she can do that is by making her body off limits to Xander.
And I do feel like, that the process for her would include not maintaining a friendship with Xander if that was something that Oz needed her to do. The thing about Oz is, and I think we all know this, is that he's not telling her she needs to do anything other than leave him alone. He needs to find his space. He needs to find out what he wants and what he desires. And that has nothing to do with Willow right now. It has everything
He's
to
like,
do
just leave me alone. He doesn't say, I want you to never speak to Xander again.
Yeah.
Or, you need to prove yourself to me. None of that. He's like, I want to think. Let me think.
Ugh.
Which I love. And
I love him.
I love that they are portraying Oz the way that they are, and Seth Green does a great job with that. Of course, he's still part of the White Hats. I love that Willow is now realizing her mistake and doing the right thing. I really wish Xander in this season would have gotten his opportunity to not be a douche. Instead, they seem to be doubling down. So it's frustrating because I know that Xander does get to take some paths down the road, but and I guess you have to, it's a TV show, but in a TV show that has enough angst in it, I don't know that they need to be playing it the way that they are. They've already Cordelia doesn't need Xander to continue being who he is, to be who she is right now. She was hurt, and this is how hurt people react. Granted, you generally don't have somebody with an amulet that's going to change the entire town. But yeah, I think that all
the other stuff is normal that she's doing.
I feel like they don't need Xander to be who he is right now for all of this other stuff to be happening. They've set all the other stuff into motion. Now maybe he can be sad and funny without being sad
or grow.
Funny.
He could grow.
Yes. Yeah. But apparently he's going to grow into a bigger douche. So
he is the part of the show that ages the worst.
Yeah.
There are moments, like you pointed out earlier, of like bits of racism and throwaway homophobia and things like that are around the edges. But Xander is one of the core characters, and he like constantly is doing things that in today's world, like many people would be like, not okay. You know what I mean? Like he would get called out constantly for this behavior if he was a teenager today. And it's interesting to watch the show 25 years later, because I think the female characters hold up beautifully.
Yep.
And it's really Xander. Giles holds up fine, but he doesn't really get to be like a real person until like next season.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. This is a small tangent. You talk about Xander not really
on this
holding
podcast?
up. I know. But this weekend, my parents and I watched 10 Things I Hate About You. And I
love that movie.
I had not seen it in way too long. It is fantastic. And it came out in 1999. So it was being filmed in 98 when Buffy was airing this season. And the way that they portray Julia Stiles' character, Kat, and the stuff that she says, which I remember back then was supposed to be like so edgy and out there. And she
super
just like
progressive feminism
makes a comment about how they're reading a bunch of white male authors in English. And brings up, she's like, what about
the principal?
Yeah. And he's just like, get out of here. And I was like, oh, okay. So this this is different, but it struck me how normalized that is now. Like, the stuff that she says and the way she behaves is more often than not what I would expect to see from younger women. And Xander, it's like the exact opposite. Where it's just,
he's regressive. Yeah.
And we know he grows. We talked about it. He does have some growth as the series goes on, but these first few seasons are just painful.
I try to remind myself that he has an incredibly horrific home life.
Yes.
And that he is deeply insecure and has never received love from anyone except Willow.
Yeah.
And so he also is probably has PTSD, right? I give Faith all kinds of grace for hers.
Yeah.
So I should really give some to Xander. The problem is like that he keeps doing things that aren't just like insecure, but like
they affect
actively
other people.
Possessive of the women in his life, and that it's like it's so hard to forgive him for it.
And I think if his background would be more in the forefront, maybe this storyline would make more sense. But it's not.
They do keep it kind of on the down low.
Yeah, it
we
definitely
get little teeny bits and pieces.
Yeah. So I maybe he's making choices based on that background, but it's not, Faith, we know right up front, like, this is who she is. We know really all of their stories to some extent. I guess not all of their stories, but I think for the most part, we know why people are acting the way that they're acting. Xander, it just seems so out of the blue all the time. And this has been a universal, and this isn't anything new. I remember, when I was initially watching the series, my wife and I dislike the character very much. I mean, I have moments, he's funny, and just looking at it as a TV show, like, you can look at it in the bare minimum of funny, but he's trying to be, he's trying to be the Chandler of this series, and
but
he's not. He's not. He's sarcastic, but he doesn't have that same rhythm and that same care. I think that
Speaking of problematic characters, though, Chandler.
Well, yeah.
Friends.
Yeah, that's
there's so much homophobia.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
It's so painful.
If we thought that Xander was doing things with the root of caring, I think through this whole thing, and maybe it speaks to Allison Hannigan as an actress, I firmly believe through this whole entire thing that part of who she is specifically with Xander, because she has wanted to be with him her whole life. She's wanted it to be, she's played that so well, that innocence, that she finds Oz, but that parallel of finding Oz and then all of the sudden the person that she's desired, it almost like opens that door up for her. Yeah. She plays that very real. And Xander has the same story. It's the same exact story, but he doesn't play it real. It plays as a facsimile of, and not to quote any famous politicians, of like how you talk in a locker room.
Yeah.
And it's not really how most, I mean, I've been in a locker room my whole life, and not many of my friends talk. I'm not saying that none of them do.
Right.
But, well, none of my friends from back then. Obviously people like take a path in their life, but he's very much a facsimile of that. And it very much frustrates me, because I think if they played it right, he could be funny and quirky, and there could be care in his being angry that, look, I've loved Willow my whole life. I don't know how to stop loving Willow, even though I found this amazing person. Like, you can play that. That makes sense. And you can play that. I mean, especially as a teenager, but I just don't think, he doesn't pull it off.
It never comes across that he discovers that he's loved Willow all along. It comes across as opportunistic.
I need to have you, and I need to have you,
and jealous.
If I can have, and oh, Buffy, I need to have you too. And
well, I think what really bothers me with Xander is that while, yes, I do believe 100% he truly cares about both Willow and Buffy as friends, the sexual possessiveness seems to be at the forefront of that. Like, it reminds me of, why a lot of people, the word or the phrase friend zone drives you crazy, because where, you'll think that, oh, I have this great friendship with this guy, we're getting along, and then you find out that
he's been waiting to sleep with you the whole time.
He was just wanting to sleep with you the whole time, and then gets angry that that doesn't happen, and then you don't actually have a friend. And there's this, sense of betrayal that comes along with it. It's like, so you just didn't want to be my friend? Like, and that's how I feel about Xander, is that there's always this other underlying motive where he got definitely jealous when he saw Buffy kissing Angel and went along with Faith to kill him. Yes, he was concerned and he had valid reasons, which we talked about, but there was that underlying jealousy there, and that is what always rubs me the wrong way with him.
Yeah.
And there's not growth. It seems to be regression. And that's what and his character in this episode, from the real world version of him to the I'm gonna stand outside the prison and watch you with ew, like, it just he makes several comments that just really, like, Willow comes off as this sexy, spiky female, like siren,
like lusty,
vampire,
hungry.
and I don't know if that, and again, this
She's
is my
powerful.
opinion. But as a vampire, she looks powerful. And when Xander turns vampire, like I was expecting to, I was like, ooh, he doesn't look good. Yeah, I was like, no, that doesn't look good at all. And again, this just could be my bias, but I actually, and now of course, I actually think I like Xander more than most people, which I everyone's like, yeah, piss off, Jim. But I do like, but this episode, it just all sort of culminated for me. Gosh, that scene in the bronze, it just, him touching her on the hand and her saying no and him fighting. Like, what are you talking about? We've been friends forever. Gosh, what you just said, Kara, is so like dead on. The friend who isn't really a friend, the friend who is sexually possessive, as it's just, that's a motif that stands. And maybe if they'd have thrown into that, but that of course doesn't really fit in the Scooby Gang kind of motif. But there are so many ways they could have gone. Yeah. Well, and maybe
I blame Joss Whedon. I'm just going to put that out there. I don't know how accurate that is, but I'm going to choose to blame it.
Well, there's definitely some data that would suggest that there's some truth to that.
Yeah. Oh gosh. But it's Xander, as the seasons go on, there are moments with him that I love. And I think when you're podcasting about something, you look at it through an even narrower lens, a finer lens. So I have to stop myself every time from just like typing out all these angry thoughts about Xander. So I'm like, he is a teenage boy. He is being depicted. He is a teenage boy. I cannot spend the entire time overanalyzing everything that he does, but it's a pattern now where you just can't ignore it. It continues to be frustrating.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, listen, I was a teenage boy, and was I an idiot? Many, many, many times. But there was, I think, the balance of being an idiot with being Oz. There are these balances that you have where you maybe, when you veer off the track, you either have somebody part of your own Scooby Gang who writes the ship, or you just have that moral code where you, wait, what am I doing? This is not. And it doesn't seem like he's got a code at all. His code is mine, 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 mine. Not to quote the seagulls from Finding Nemo, but he very much never. You get glimpses of it, but up to this point, you don't get to see it, and it could be there. And I think he's good enough an actor Because I think there are questionable. I think Allison Hannigan in the first couple of seasons, like there are moments where you think to yourself, "Is she a good actress?" And as they give her more, you get to see, like, yeah, like last week and this week, she has these moments where you're like, "Yeah, she could really be a star of this show. She could be a main character if Buffy's not in an episode. She could be a really good character." And in this episode, she shows everybody she could be Spike. She could be the dark version. And I'm just. Penny, I'm just trying to segue to your dark version of the characters part that we were about to talk about. Because this is fun.
It's true.
Yeah.
Dark Willow, though. It's so good. Do you see... So, it's got to be at least somewhat intentional for Willow and Xander to kind of play off the whole Spike and Drusilla vibe. But... Willow definitely seems to embody Spike much more so than Xander does. And I don't know. I feel like she overpowers him in every single scene that they're in together, where Spike and Drusilla play off of each other. And, you know, they both of them have theatrical backgrounds, and I think that comes through tenfold in their scenes. And Allison Hannigan, when she gets to be mean or evil, is, even in all roles that she plays, I think of Lily on How I Met Your Mother, when she has those kind of evil moments. Allison Hannigan thrives with those types of scenes, and it is so much fun to watch. It's intoxicating almost. Like, with Spike coming on screen in the last episode, it is, like, I think Penny used it, like a bolt of lightning. It's just energizing to see. And her whole, you know, back and forth with Angel as the puppy and toying with him is just...
Toying with Giles.
The moment when they come in to the Bronze and they, you know, they go over to talk to the Master, and the Master is like, "Oh, do either of you want to eat this woman? She's looking at me or whatever."
I forgot about that.
The look on Willow's face of, like, this lust for the kill.
Yeah.
But also, like, a little bit of a playfulness to it is amazing. It's one of those moments where I'm like, she is so much of a better actor than Nicholas Brendan.
Oh.
Like, she's just, the face acting alone is perfect.
So good.
And the level of acting that we get to see, the progression, you can see that these actors are finding themselves through this series. You know, Buffy in this episode gets to be, you know, that dark version of herself, and we get to see her. You know, Penny, you've mentioned this multiple times about the light that comes out of her when she, in the way she can use her face to showcase love, or to showcase how, you know, that naivete or that sadness that she feels. You can see it, like, oozing out of her face. And then for her to, in this episode, turns it off. Her introduction is this episode are the sounds, right? The beating up sounds and the dustings you hear, and then you pan up and you see her. She's got, you know, you talk about, and I know there's going to be a point where we talk about fashion, but she's got cargo pants. I mean, literally the
just
worst.
Practical.
Yep. Green cargo pants. She just looks like a machine. Her hair, you know, at first I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got short hair, but it, you know, it was all tied up in, you know, she doesn't want anyone to be able to grab her hair. And dead, not a bit of that light that we get to see,
like combat ready.
Yeah, the complete opposite of what we see when we see her staring at Angel, whether it's staring at Angel in love or staring at Angel and I'm saying goodbye to you. There's every emotion flying, zero emotion in this episode. Literally,
think about that, what you just described, with way back when, is it when we see Becoming part 1 and 2, where you see little teen Buffy licking a lollipop with a pink fluffy jacket on the steps at school? So for her to have gone from that to this dark Buffy, and the way Sarah Michelle Gellar nails them both so perfectly is just crazy. But it's truly in the eyes, in the facial expressions, in her voice tone,
everything.
and inflection.
She controls her face muscles. I don't know how she does it to like
seriously
soften and harden her face that way. I mean, I'm sure they help with makeup, but it's something that she's doing, and it's beautiful.
And I when we listen to other people from Podcastica who maybe don't watch the show, there's a natural inclination, I think, to believe it's a 90210, and of course there are aspects of that, and this is not knocking 90210 because it served its purpose, and there was great acting in that here and there as well. I'm just saying that, and maybe we're biased. I mean, I'm just saying that. I mean, it's possible that we're biased because we love this show, but I really, I've not watched. Now I'm watching every episode, even the ones I'm not recording. I'm watching 2 or 3 times because what I'm noticing is the little bits that you miss. You can just watch it on the surface and go, yes, this was a show for millennials in the 90s to watch, or shows for Gen X who are still trying to cling on to that, that teenager angsty self of ours. But it's not that. It's
deeper than that.
And whoever you want to give credit to, whether it's JW or whether it's the crew that eventually molds this on, there is a Roddenberryness to this where you're trying to do more without letting the viewer know that you're doing it. And that's what makes this, and what they found on purpose or by accident, I kind of think on purpose, because we get to see every great actor that we see bleed into the show. We get to see take off in later seasons, and they weren't supposed to. This happens 4 or 5 times. And this is kudos to all the, and I think that's why I think we can get frustrated with Xander. Everybody else is growing. And I think when I was whining a little bit about Oz, he's already grown up, right? Like he's already who he's gonna be. Like, well, and that's not totally true, but he
has a blip.
Sometimes he seems to be stagnant to me, whereas all of these other dynamic characters are growing. And I think Xander, I'm not trying, gosh, y'all don't come after me. But there's a similar, like Xander's on the floor and Oz is on the roof, but sometimes
they're both static.
Yeah, they're both static characters. Now that does not stay the same, but that's why I think being frustrated with Xander's okay. And listen, Oz gives us his monologue every week, and his monologue is always be like Oz. Be like Oz. By the way, side note, happy birthday to Seth Green, who just turned.
Just a few days ago.
Who was a fellow Gen Xer, by the way, which still shocks the heck out of me. Just turned.
How old is he now?
50 years old. Seth Green is 50 years old. That's right. And joining him there, Alexis Denisoff was there, and who else? Allison Hannigan was there.
I think Sarah Michelle Gellar was in those pictures too. I saw a bunch of birthday pictures.
Okay, there was just he's 50. I
watched Can't Hardly Wait the other day. That is what I still associate Seth Green with.
Man,
how is he 50?
Cover that on the podcast one day. That's a good one.
That's a fun one. But that is, man, they're all aging very well.
They are.
Sorry, I just tangented.
I saw a recent picture of Charisma Carpenter recently, and I was like, that is not her real skin. I was like, she does not look 50.
No, she looks like she's 25 and still in high school. Sorry, bad pun.
She barely looks older than she does on the show. Yeah. It's amazing. She's amazing.
Well, especially when you're so used to seeing these people kind of frozen in time in this, in this show that we rewatch, you get used to how they look.
But they all look so. They all look good.
Yeah.
Good. Like I just saw a Boreanaz interview where he looks very similar to what he used to look like. I just saw, Charisma Carpenter. Marsters is one of the older cast members, and he's starting to look a little bit his age, but the minute he blondes his hair, like he's got brown hair now, his hair, he doesn't look too far off from Spike.
And he sucks in his cheeks, and you're like, oh, there is Spike. There he is. It's funny. David Boreanaz is more Seeley Booth to me than Angel.
Yeah.
Just because in the last several years I've watched Bones a bunch of times and I hadn't watched Angel again. So I'm wondering if that'll flip again once we start watching
Angel.
And I get more Angel in my head.
I keep saying Angel's my favorite character. None of that is based on he is not top 10 to me in the Buffy side of things. We don't get to see his range of character until
he gets a lot more interesting when he's on his own show.
Until we
He really does.
Spoilers, by the way. Sorry, I can't go backtrack. Yeah, he might live through this season. I'm just saying.
It doesn't really matter on Buffy. People die and come back.
Yeah, yeah.
That's true. It's like Supernatural.
Which, by the way, has a couple of great alternate universe episodes.
Oh, yes.
I like the one when they go to the world with no magic.
Oh, that's
good. They are actors, and they have to pretend to be actors in a world with no magic. It's one of the funniest episodes of TV I've ever seen.
What is that one called? It's not fan fiction, but fan fiction is also fantastic.
Yeah, I like the one also where they go to a supernatural convention.
Oh my gosh, that one's so good. God, I love that show.
We're not doing a supernatural podcast. I think we have thoroughly dissected The Wish. And I am cognizant
the French mistake. I'm sorry.
The French mistake, of course.
That's what it is. That was gonna drive me crazy.
All right, I'm gonna segue us over into talking about trivia. Our first piece of trivia is that the vampire dusting effect has gone through a little bit of growth over the 3 seasons, and at this point, it starts to feature the vampire's skeleton as they turn to dust, which I think is just an excellent touch. Yeah. It really just drives home the dusting of the vampire. It's beautiful.
I'm going to do my trivia in a second, but the fact that we did not talk about the human tap machine.
Oh yeah.
I don't get it.
They're like, we're gonna create this wonderful way that we don't have to be actual vampires anymore. We don't have to go on the hunt. And we've got this conveyor belt. And I was like, yeah, like that, you still have to go get people, and you're just, it's not.
It seems like you're just making more work for yourself.
And would it stay as fresh? Like, I feel like
that's why you keep them alive, for the freshness.
Yeah.
Well, but do you have to be there to get it immediately? Like,
I guess so.
You know,
because it's not like she was on ice.
Yeah, she was alive.
But
they tasered her.
That,
I guess,
that scene was just so disgusting. Like, I was like,
it's
ew.
Gross.
Ew,
and all the people in the cages are watching, and it's like, that's gonna happen to
know.
you next. It's gross. It's
that was
gross.
one of the cheerleaders from Bring It On. Also,
yes, it was.
Yeah. Wasn't she the Cordette?
She's a Cordette.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't. I rumor has it I tangent now and then, but I cannot believe we didn't talk about the tap. Anyways, the exposition about Anyanka, gosh, I love that name so much. And, Anya, obviously, but Anyanka is just a beautiful name, was changed in this episode. Her exposition was changed. Giles' original story of her ran as follows. Anyanka raised a demon to ruin her unfaithful lover. The demon did her bidding, but then cursed her and turned her into a sort of patron saint for scorned women. Apparently, the cry of a wronged woman is like the siren's call to Anyanka. So a slight change from the story that we get, which I don't know that I like the true story of what ultimately happens, or that story more or less, but because they do talk about, they both talk about the patron saint of
I like the
scorned
description of a cry of a wronged woman as like a siren's call.
Yeah. I do like that.
Imagery that conjures up is fun. Ugh. All right. Next bit of trivia is that this is the very first mention in the Buffyverse of Cleveland, Ohio.
Woo, woo. Go Cleveland. Sorry.
Cleveland rocks.
Cleveland rocks as another hellmouth and center of demon activity.
Look, I love my town, but in 1998, Okay, if anybody's listening to this that knows I'm from Cleveland, I mean, come on. Look, 98, certainly Cleveland could be described a bit as, it's not anymore, but Hellmouth probably wasn't a stretch. I sorry, 216, I'm sorry. I love you guys.
So the initial plan for, they call it Wishverse Buffy, but Dark Buffy, was that she was going to be decked out in even more military-style clothing with an even larger cross, which is hard to believe because that cross was gigantic. The writers must have thought it would look silly, so they went with a grittier, harder version of Buffy's normal dress sense.
I like that choice.
Really good decision.
We did need the like Flavor Flav version of Buffy.
Yeah, like Buffy's cross didn't need to be like a huge. Yeah, I mean that thing was like 3 inches. It was huge.
So I feel like it's not very consistent how crosses work in the Buffyverse. Because the way, like, when that cross was near Angel, he, like, reacted, freaked out. But in regular universe, Buffy and Angel were pretty close multiple times, and he never seemed fazed by the cross around her neck.
Yeah.
There is one episode where her cross burns him.
Yeah.
They're, like, making out, and the cross has burned a little cross mark in his skin. I think the thing in this universe is that he wasn't ready for it, so he flinched.
Yeah.
Not that it's a bigger deal than it is in the regular universe. I think that now when he sees Buffy, he knows that there's going to be a cross necklace.
His love for her.
The thing with crosses has been one of those things that I wish I could not pay attention to as I've been rewatching it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm like, why does it have to be Christian? Okay. We have sort of been skirting around the subject already, but it is time to ask, does it still slay? Kara, you first.
I think it does still slay. It's one of the more enjoyable episodes in the Buffyverse to me. The more that we talk about it, I don't know if it's in my top 15, but it's one of those that I always think fondly back on, and it's just fun to watch the beginnings, spoilery, of Evil Willow and see what would have been, because I think that's something that I think about very frequently is alternate universes, and if one decision had been different, what kind of path would that have opened up? So it's fun to see that kind of come to life in a show that I love. So I think it still slays, for sure.
Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I can mince around at the beginning about how much less I like this episode. It's still a great episode. Like I said, if you do alternate universe, alternate reality well, it always comes out as a great episode, and you get to see new versions of characters that you absolutely love if you do it right. And like for me, if I'm a showrunner and I get this evil version of Willow as a vampire, I'd be like, maybe someday I'll bring this character back.
Yeah,
that's just what I would say. But I digress. So yeah, does it still slay? It absolutely positively still slays. And there will be an episode or two where I don't say that. I think, but we're not close to those yet. We're not close.
Well, I think what's hard with this one is that there are so many other Buffy alternate universe episodes that are amazing.
Yes.
That's what I compare it with in my head.
Yes.
Yeah.
That we have not gotten to yet.
Hey, let's head on over to the Bronze and have a near beer since we're teenagers and see what some of our listeners thought of the episode.
Bronze things. Things of bronze.
Love it. So first up, some of our Facebook feedback from Karen. She said, I believe this is the one with Willow saying, bored now, used by my husband at least once a week. It is indeed.
I didn't get to do this when we were doing the discussion, so.
Bored now.
I love my sound clips.
So
Dodie
fun.
from Maine writes in and says, this episode is a nice twist on the It's a Wonderful Life miracle. But in this case, it's not Buffy who gets to see what Sunnydale would be like without her, but Cordelia. Be careful what you wish for.
That's for sure. Next up is from Abby, who says, without question, an all-time favorite of mine. I think because I have a thing for alternate universes. I loved
like
Dark
Jim.
Willow. Oh, yeah. And poor tortured Angel. Hot, hot, hot in all caps without that shirt. Literally, he was being burned. So, it works. I even loved Army Barbie Buffy. I like that.
Yeah,
Army
that
Barbie
look is
Buffy.
pretty cool, actually. If she just changed it a little bit, it would be pretty hip for the 90s. Cargo pants were way in, you guys.
That's true. In those
They're coming
boots.
back. Yeah, and
Are
Doc
they
Martens.
really?
Yeah, they're coming
Doc
back.
Martens were fun and heavy.
Yeah. Jolene says, this is definitely in my top 5 episodes, probably top 3. I could probably write a 3,000-word assignment about this one, but these are my most notable events. I love how it builds up to the wish with everything that happens to Cordelia. Harmony being horrible to her, John Lee saying he'll only see her if it's kept quiet. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that. That is really hurtful and humiliating. The incident outside the bronze, that's when she gets thrown in the garbage. First time I saw this episode, I assumed the wish was going to be something happening to Xander, so it blew my mind when I realized what was happening, and then a little mind-blowing emoji. Cordelia's slow realization when she sees how bad Sunnydale is without Buffy is played out so well, as is her horror at Xander and Willow, 1, still being together in Bizarro Land, and then 2, being vampires. Didn't expect her to die, but as the saying goes, be careful what you wish for. Buffy being so battle-weary and like Faith is very strange to see, but also shows us how she would have turned out without the support network she's got in Sunnydale. Also didn't expect her to die, and in such a graphic way. It still shocks me, that scene. Her exchange with Angel about, is this a get in my pants thing, makes me laugh. But I've never been able to figure out if he remembers the old world or if he recognizes Buffy from when he was Stalky McStalkerson at her high school. I'm pretty sure it's the Stalker thing.
Yeah.
And now that you've said Stalky McStalkerson, I'm going to keep using that.
Yeah.
Was very glad Willow's puppy wasn't an actual puppy. Yeah, true.
That's a good point.
That would have been worse.
Would not have tolerated that very well.
Love the white hats. It's great seeing Larry back, and I love that this is how they included Oz. He hadn't been turned to, although a werewolf-vampire hybrid would have been interesting. Giles' response to Anyanka at the end always gets me. How do you know the other world is any better than this? Because it has to be. The light relief at the end with Cordelia saying wish after wish after wish about Xander and Willow, and Anya is just stood there saying, done, done, done. Laugh cry emoji.
That was funny.
Spoiler, I'm so glad they kept Anya in the show. I've always wondered, did they intend to keep her for so long, or was the original plan just so they had someone who can tell them about the mayor's plan, and then they realized how good the character was, so they kept her? We will talk about that a little bit in the spoiler section.
You're right. Yep.
Favorite quote from this one, Oz. Cordelia wished for something. If it was a long, healthy life, she should get her money back. Yeah, that was a good line.
That's a good one.
Good Oz moment.
Oh, man. Next up is Becky. She said, hello all, thoughts on season 3, episode 9. I remember this episode, but not having watched it in a long time, I'd forgotten a lot of what happened. Made it more fun to watch because some of it was like watching for the first time. I had totally forgotten about Cordy dying and Angel being in this episode. Good for Willow setting boundaries with Xander. Yes, ma'am. Cordelia was killing it in the revenge outfits. She looked amazing. Her laugh after she realized she got her wish was great. I can remember spending a night or two in my teenage years cutting people out of pictures. Hello, that's true. That was a nice little fake out too, because when I remember first seeing the episode, I thought it was going to be more of a witchcraft
Yeah, I thought she was going to be
vibe.
Yeah, cursing Xander or something, because she was burning the
a little
pictures.
more vengeful. Then she says, the set designers did a great job making Sunnydale look like a deserted wasteland. Really sold the doom and gloom of the episode. The teacher rushing to get out of class made me chuckle. That was funny. I love how Allison delivers bored now. She once again did a phenomenal job. Excellent as the bad girl. She's a great actress. I was a bit concerned where they were going with the play with the puppy thing. Thank goodness Willow grabbed keys and not something else on the master.
Oh, yeah, ew.
Yeah, that was special. Giles is even sexier in the alternate universe. Why didn't he use that axe to get out of the cage before Cordy was killed? Cool Giles is who eventually saves the day in this one. Nice to see him be the hero. I don't know if that axe would have done much good, honestly. So it gave me a chuckle when Giles was talking to Buffy and flexing his watcher skills, and she looks at him blankly and says, "Great." The scar on Sarah Michelle Gellar was super cool and edgy. Her actions and movements were very Faith-like. I wonder if she took any pointers from Eliza. I laughed out loud when Angel asked her what the plan was, and she hands him a steak and says, "Don't fall on this." Her delivery was so good. It was well shot and great editing of the slow motion scenes. The music was powerful and added to the intensity of what was happening on screen. I thought the who killed who was fitting. Xander killing Angel, Buffy killing Xander, and Oz killing Willow, and both Willow and Xander killing Cordelia. Oh yeah, those were definitely intentional choices for sure. Her favorite quotes, Xander talking about trying to reach Cordelia. I've left a few messages, 60 or 70. Jeez, Xander. That is electronic harassment. Cordelia trying to explain their world changed. It was better. I mean, the clothes alone. That was a great line. When Willow climbs on Angel, that's right, puppy. Willow's gonna make you bark. Ugh,
so disturbing.
Something like creepy and mildly sexual about it, and I can't. Everything Cordy was wishing for at the end of the episode, hilarious. This was such a great episode. I'm always a fan of alternate universe episodes, and this one did not disappoint. Everyone dying was a surprise. Classic lesson of the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It was brutal to see our beloved characters die, but it made for an excellent episode. Have a great week. Grr. Arg.
Grr, arg.
Arg.
You, Becky. Awesome. Thank you so much. That's great feedback. And we have a couple of voicemails. I'll play
Yay.
Steve first.
Hello, still slaying. This is Steve, and this is for one of the all-time best Buffy the Vampire Slayer episodes, The Wish. Oh, look at that. We begin with no previously on, and we have a daytime fight. Oh, it's so sad seeing Cordelia this way, and answering machines. Oh, that's so bad. Showing her Jonathan, and then all of them laughing at her. Oh, I get choked up at this Oz and Willow scene. He just needs time. Come on, just time. And Anya picking her up right up with Harmony's. I can't talk today. Her strength of character, saying that if she had an original thought in her head, it would be lonely or whatever she just said. It's so pathetic. Both of them at the bronze trying to act like they've moved on. I love how Willow really wants to make it up with Oz, and Xander, I don't know. I think the way this is written is that that he and Cordelia are never, ever getting back together. And of course, Cordelia comes out of the trash right in front of Harmony and her friends. Oh, and there's the wish, or the word wish, mic drop. But Anya, demon face, it definitely needs some moisturizer. Okay, so I think we need to keep an eye on this. Cordy is still wearing the necklace that Anya gave her when she said the wish. And I'm sure I was, like most people, I didn't even pick up on the fact that he asked her to winter brunch. And they do a monthly memorial to what happened to the harvest. Cordelia just hasn't picked up on it yet that she is in a disturbing alternate reality. Ooh, and the first time we hear "Bored Now" from the Willow Vamp. Oh yeah, and the white hats in Oz's van. Oh yeah, I forgot that Sunnydale at night has basically turned into a vampire's playground. Oh, and the Master is back. Yeah, I don't remember noticing. I did this time though, noticing all the former actors' names in the credits when this episode started. Oof, and they just drain Cordelia's blood, killing her, and just drop her to the floor. She still had the necklace on too. Oh, I see. Giles takes the necklace off her now. Allison Hannigan must have had so much fun playing this character of Vamp Willow. You can just tell she's just enjoying it so much. You creepy Vamp Xander, I just want to watch you go. Hey, not gonna lie, the little scar on her lip, Buffy, badass Slayer is kind of sexy. Watch her muscles. Oh, that's right. Angel did see her before she came to Sunnydale. This is a get in my pants thing. Oh, Anyanka, throat lozenge? Okay, now Anyanka, the demon, has the necklace back on her. Oh, did Xander stake Angel, or where did that come from? And Buffy stakes Xander, Oz stakes Willow, and the Master did break Buffy's neck again before Giles smashes the necklace, but now the necklace is smashed, so it all changes. I mean, and now we have the end of the episode.
Oh, that's the end. Thanks, Steve. That was
that
hilarious.
An intentional Taylor Swift reference?
I think
Steve?
that was definitely an intentional Taylor Swift reference. And he's right. They are never, ever, ever getting back together.
Mm-hmm.
Our other voicemail is from Sam.
Hey, it's Sam. Oh, I'm so excited you guys are on the Wish episode. It's one of my favorites. Yay. I think 13-year-old me really got onto the apocalyptic dystopian future alternate reality bus with this episode. I always remember being just riveted by it. Like the whole concept of it, of what would the world look like if humanity was taken down a couple of notches on the evolutionary food chain. And it's just so cool. Like, this has probably influenced me to become interested in The Walking Dead and I Am Legend, or the FX series based on a book. The strain of, it has a similar plot of vampiric creatures taking over the world. And it was just so interesting, and just to see how we adapt to it and how we work. And it was just really cool to see. And of course, Oz would have been one of the good guys, one of the white hats. I mean, I like that that's not even in question. And it was just really interesting to sort of follow the flow of that and have Cordelia be our into it. And Allison Hannigan and Nicholas Brendan, you could totally tell that they enjoyed playing the evil versions of their characters as vampires. I honestly prefer this version of Xander. I guess the polarization of some of his most obnoxious traits as human Xander just seemed more entertaining for me, of like, yeah, he's a bad guy. I don't know, maybe that's just an insight into my psyche of like, oh, this is actually a more interesting character for me. And you can totally tell that they were behind the scenes trying to figure out, do we want to make Xander be the gay character, or Willow be the gay character? And there's like little queer coding into the characters as vampires, and maybe that allowed them to play with that a little bit more. Like, Xander's caressing the guy who is tied down to the pool table and is, rubbing the jail cell while Willow's on top of Angel. So it was like, this is interesting. There's like these little sort of character moments where like he looks turned on when Willow is like, can I go play with the puppy? And it was just really interesting to sort of, obviously 13-year-old me did not understand that, but seeing it now as an adult, I'm like, ooh, this is so interesting. Like, Buffy would be a great what if series. Like, even if they did like an animated version, it would be so interesting. And just seeing all this play out was so interesting, and the dynamics. And I think it's because of the JW stuff that I know now of him torturing Charisma Carpenter on set, and just the allegories of sexual assault. Like, of course he would have two women say like, why is Cordelia wearing that? She should know better. Like, ooh, like, and then the Angel being tortured, like everything just sort of had a sexual assault undertone to it that was a little rough for me to watch. So like, it's not good. And then, of course, Anya, I was so excited. She's one of my favorite characters. So I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about all of it. And how do you think the storyline would have gone if they'd created Xander as a gay character? Like, who do you think he would have had a relationship with?
Oh, man, that's such a good question.
That is a good question. I also do not think they would have handled... I don't know. I just feel like it would not hold up as well if they had approached it with Xander.
I don't know that Nicholas Brendan is the actor who could have pulled that off.
Yeah.
They would have had to do a lot of, all of that bluster and sexual possessiveness was overcompensation.
Yeah.
And unwrap a lot of that stuff. I think in terms of relationships, there probably would have had to be a new character.
Yeah.
For him. The way that, Willow eventually gets a new character as a girlfriend. But I mean, maybe they could have had him hook up with Larry.
I would have been on board with it being Larry, because I don't know if they handled it the right way.
Yeah, it's all about the writing.
Yeah, I could see that. But it is interesting. We didn't talk about that during our discussion, the kind of undertones of victim blaming, but there is definitely some of that here with, Cordelia, what's she wearing? And you absolutely know if she got bit out and about, it would have been
she should have been out there, and she was dressed like that, and then
she knows better. She was asking for like that type of parallel. That's a good point, and that definitely comes up a couple more times in the series. But that is an interesting question about Xander. I don't know if I have as much faith in Nicholas Brendan.
Yeah.
In carrying out something a bit more sensitive like that at the time that I do for Allison Hannigan, because she just absolutely killed it. And I don't know, that would have been a very tricky thing to do with his character as being the comic relief, skewing away from making it, seem like you're making light of homosexuality.
Like he might have gone into caricature. I also think that at the time in the late 90s, there were a lot of not a lot. There were starting to be gay men on TV, but having a lesbian on TV was fresh.
Yeah.
I think it was
Will
like
and
a
Grace,
marketing thing.
Oh yeah, like Will and Grace started in 1998, and part of the reason why that show was accepted is because Will was more straight passing, and they were able to play off of this whole will they won't they with Will and Grace intentionally throughout that entire series.
That would not go well today.
No.
It was important at the time, and it was an important way for sort of the zeitgeist to transition into accepting gay characters, but that always kind of bothered me that they even played around with it at all.
Oh yeah, I can't remember if it was I don't know, it may have been one of those I Love the 90s shows, or it could have been a podcast episode I listened to where they were discussing that and the struggles the writers had, where the network was seriously pressuring them to like, can't they just get together just once? Or, can we, make it a little more up in the air if Will's bisexual? And they were just like, no. He's not.
That's not the point of the show.
Yep. Yeah. And it was this huge struggle. So, and we mentioned Chandler earlier on, and I would worry that if they had gone that route with Xander, it would, like you said, Penny, go a little too far into possible caricature.
Yeah.
But,
I think that there is a version of the comic book where Xander is gay, though. One of the many different comic book versions out there. It's the one where it's like present day and Buffy and gang are teenagers again. I don't like that particular comic as much. I haven't read past the first couple of episodes of it because it's not as good as some of the other ones that I really like. There's one that I really like. It's Buffy the Last Slayer, where it's like 40 years in the future and she's the last Slayer alive, and it's dark.
That sounds fun.
I enjoy that one a lot. She's like, she's like 60 and she meets up with Spike and he's like, I still think you're hot.
That checks out.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
She's like, oh, look at me. I'm all wrinkly now and you're the same age. And he's like, you still hot to me. Like, it's really cute. It's really, it makes you love Spike. You're like, oh, Spike. All right. That is the end of the main section of the podcast. Stay tuned for Watcher's Diaries if you want to hear the spoilery stuff and things that we're going to talk about there.
Thanks.
If you're a Walking Dead fan, you get that joke, and if you're not, then sorry.
Yep. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can find all of our contact information at podcastica.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/podcastica or Instagram at Still Slaying Cast. You can also follow our Still Slaying Cast Facebook page, and you can send email or a recorded voice message to stillslayingfeedback@gmail.com.
And also, you'll find all this information again at podcastica.com, and also links to various social media pages and all the very many other Podcastica shows. And I want to take this opportunity to plug a show that I think is underappreciated, and that is Extraordinary. The first season is already out there. It's on Hulu in the US, and it's on Disney Plus if you're outside the US. It is one of the funniest shows I have ever seen. And if you are a Buffy fan, and one of the things you like about Buffy is the campiness and the way they externalize internal problems by making them supernatural, Extraordinary does this. But it's extremely funny. It is also not a kid's show, even though it kind of looks like it might be because it's all like bright and colorful and cheerful. It is very raunchy. And it's half-hour episodes. There's 8 episodes in the first season, so it's not a huge commitment. Season 2 comes out March 6th, and Greg and I podcasted about the first season. We had a blast. We fell in love with the characters. We're very excited to be podcasting for season 2, and I just hope more people will discover the show because I think it is some of the best writing that's going on right now in TV.
Nice. That's a good that's a good pitch. I feel like people should definitely jump all in on that one. I have just been re-listening to Better Call Saul episodes. It's so much fun. I've been doing that. I've been listening to some of the first few episodes of the Cobra Kai cast. I did a Zedhead episode a couple weeks back with Jason and Mark, and Jason was talking about the last season, the next season coming up of Cobra Kai, and that season sounded really interesting to me, and I didn't know how I felt about all the other ones, so I decided I would just listen to their coverage up to the current season, and so far so good. It's really entertaining, so
that's great. That's like I don't watch Fear the Walking Dead anymore. I just listen to the podcast coverage of it because the show is so horrible, but Jason and Lucy are hilarious when they talk about how much they hate it.
Yeah.
That's a Patreon only podcast. If you want to listen to it, you guys have to pledge to the Patreon.
And if you like what we do, hit like, follow, and subscribe. Give us a 5-star rating if you feel like it. And next time, we will be covering Season 3, Episode 10, Amends. Thanks, everyone, and... I wish that Xander Harris never again knows the touch of a woman.
Done!
I wish that Willow wakes up tomorrow covered in monkey hair.
Done! All right, that is the end of the non-spoiler part of the podcast. If you want to avoid spoilers, you should stop listening now. Give you a couple of seconds to turn off your listening thing. Okay, now it's all spoilers all the time. On to the Watcher's Diaries.
It's too bad we can't sneak a look at the Watcher Diaries. I'm sure it's full of fun facts to know and tell.
Yeah, that's too bad. That stuff is private.
Also, Giles keeps them in his office, in his personal files.
Most importantly, it would be wrong.
Seriously.
All right, Dark Willow. Willow.
Love it. Every time, I feel like I almost have PTSD a little from that bored now and when she flays Warren alive. Like, I cannot hear that without then picturing what happens immediately after.
It is so disgusting.
It's so gross, but so evil. And like Allison Hannigan in season, in this season, as we have already seen glimpses of her being Dark Willow, it's the same character. Like, she just intuitively knows what to do with this type of material. And God, it's like she's acting circles around poor Nicholas Brendan at this point. And
bored now becomes this, like favorite line, and I've seen it on t-shirts and mugs, and there's like, it's a thing that people say, and I have said it when I'm like at a bad party or something. I'll be like, bored now.
Bored now.
I've never then gone on to
someone.
like murder someone, but it is something that, and then other Buffy fans immediately recognize it, right? So if you say it and another Buffy fan is in the room, they're like, yeah, bored now. Like, it's iconic. And it didn't have to be such a great line. Like, if she hadn't delivered it the way she did, it wouldn't be memorable, and it wouldn't have come back the way that it does in future episodes.
Ugh. I cannot wait.
And look, I don't know when they had plotted out season 6. I don't know when it like struck them to do that. Maybe they had it planned, but obviously when they get a glimpse of Willow as Dark Willow, and we get to see, I mean, this character comes back eventually this season in Doppelgangland, and we get to actually see,
I love that episode.
Willow versus, not Willow versus, but we get to see Willow and Willow interact with each other. And that's where, when you talk about mirror, the best part of that show is when you get to see these characters interact with their darker selves. And to get to see that actually come to fruition, and you get to see her play both sides of it. It's just brilliant.
Oh my God, I love those scenes.
That's when she's like, I think I might be a little gay, like in the other universe. And they were planning on making the choice of having either Xander,
or Willow,
great name, or Willow be gay.
I love in that scene when she's like, "That's me as a vampire. I'm so evil and skanky.
Yeah,
I think I'm kind of gay." And then Buffy goes, "Willow, the personality as a vampire has nothing to do with who you are in your regular life." And Angel's like, "Actually, yeah, okay, sure."
Yeah,
like, it's so clear that he's like, "Well, that's actually part of your true personality in there, Willow, but I'm not gonna."
And we see it with her witchcraft practice. We saw it in, the last episode, how she was, gonna basically the equivalent of drugging Xander without telling him.
Yeah,
and
her
we
lust
see
for
it.
Power.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She's
and Gingerbread
for power
coming up. Like, I thought of Gingerbread a lot throughout this episode. One, because Joyce brings up in the Gingerbread episode, which I think is not next week, but the next one after that we cover. Joyce brings up how, whether Buffy really makes a difference being the Slayer, and how much good she does being the Slayer. And it's so much more infuriating with that episode right after pretty much we have seen this one, and we know how ridiculous and hopeless Sunnydale would be without Buffy in it. And it just, it drives me crazy. But I love the way they plan that out, because we know that they sat there with storyboards, and they're great at continuity.
And the whole season, and plotting out different character beats. Ugh. I'm excited to cover Gingerbread. That is a really... That episode delivers a lot of different things that are really fun. Not the least of which is Oz and Xander falling through the ceiling tiles after everything is finished. It's like one of my
Love
favorite
that.
moments ever.
Buffy's like, did I get him? And it's this giant post stick. Anyway. Oh, I love
We'll
that.
get there. We'll get there. We'll get there.
But yeah,
so
Dark Willow.
Dark Willow. Dark Willow is the gift that keeps on giving. I already mentioned that Nancy is going to show up again in earshot. That was one of the other big spoilers.
Yep.
And one of my all-time actually top favorite episodes is Helpless, which we're going to cover in a few weeks. And that episode I always think of as sort of like a counterpart or a companion to this one of like Buffy without Giles, or Giles without Buffy, and then Buffy without Giles. And also, you know, he said she didn't respect him and he couldn't, you know, after the Revelations thing. And then anyway, Helpless is coming up, and I feel like we're gonna have to refer back a lot to Dark Giles when we get there.
Was Gingerbread the episode where Joyce asks Buffy if her being a Slayer actually makes a difference?
Yeah.
And I only mention that because this is the episode.
Calls her reactive.
Yeah. But this is the episode that shows us that she does make a difference, which I think is kind of ironic. When you were talking about Gingerbread, it just struck a chord. I was like, that's where Mom actually ponders the question, does she make a difference? Where we know how much of a difference that she makes. But
Moo. I can't wait to meet Moo. It's gonna be so great. So yeah, the reason that, you know, they had to break up Xander and Cordelia, I think because not just because she's going to move over to the Angel series, but also because they ultimately don't make sense. She's way too good for him.
Yeah.
But they also, I think that they brought Anyanka in here with an actor who could go on to be a major character, you know, that not a throwaway actor, because they needed another like girlfriend for Xander.
Yeah.
Right? And that's who Anya ends up being. And so they were like, we need someone who's like a little bit like Cordelia, but not Cordelia, who can step into that position.
I toyed with, there are a couple of little bits of spoiler-ish trivia when it comes to the character of Anya. And gosh, she's so funny. And the irony being, one of the original actresses who they had initially cast as Anya and offered her the role turned it down because Anya was only supposed to have 2 episodes. It wasn't some, you know, ongoing storyline. But the actress who plays Anya is just so talented and wonderful, Emma Caulfield, that she convinced them, just like James Marster did, to keep her around. She was hilarious. They kept bringing her back. And then ultimately she was a series regular on the show. So things worked out. That's another thing with this show. I feel like there are lots
actor
of
that they cast.
that
initially.
I could not find.
They keep that so close. I've always wanted to find out who was the original Willow, and
I know
they don't like to tell.
No. And I just, you know, I think
piece of trivia, listeners, if you didn't know that Allison Hannigan was not in the first version of the pilot. They reshot a whole bunch of it when they recast the Willow part. I don't know what was wrong with the first Willow, but apparently she was just not right.
Well, and
Riff Regan was her name.
I've never heard of that person.
Interesting. Me neither.
If you look her up, she definitely has been like a character actor in some things. But it was Riff Regan. She did the first pilot, which was a shorter, it was like almost a sitcom length. She was actually, the name just stood out to me. But I saw this earlier this week. I never knew that until this week. So see, I find these random things, and that's my value to the show. But she's been in, I can't remember what she's been in, but she has been in some things that we've seen.
Oh, I'm looking her up right now. She was on Roseanne. She was on Blossom, Sisters, Murder in New Hampshire, the Pamela Smart story. Sorry, that one, I lived in New Hampshire when that was happening. So for me, that the Pamela Smart story is like massive nostalgia. Like I knew a bunch of kids that went to that high school. Like,
dang.
If you don't know the Pamela Smart story,
Google
it. It's worth it.
I went through. I realized I had a couple of tiny notes left that I didn't mention. Multiple people in this writer's room obviously are well versed in Shakespeare, because the Merchant of Venice comes up multiple times throughout the series with just straight quotes from it. And in this one, it's the Master saying to Xander when he's asking basically, like, what the news is, and he says, "No, what news on the Rialto?" which is word for word from the Merchant of Venice. And
I knew that was a reference, and I didn't know what it was a reference to. Yes. That's fantastic.
But it also makes sense that the Master would be the one quoting Shakespeare, since he's been around for centuries and centuries and centuries. But I'm gonna have to keep an eye out now for more Shakespeare quotes, because there are subtle ones they slip in.
We get more Master. The wish verse continues, and the funny thing about it too, and like the harvest actually happens in the wish verse, because he's on the surface now, which not now,
he
but
broke out of the Hellmouth, and
so there's an
we
episode
also get
actually
more
called...
of the Master in some. There's going to be some flashbacks of when he created Darla. On Angel. That's fun.
Yeah,
I love the flashback.
Mark Metcalf is amazing.
Episodes.
I like the way he moves. He has a way of, his shoulders don't go up and down when he's walking, so it looks like he's floating.
He's gliding. Yeah.
What was he in? Other than Niedermeyer is all Niedermeyer and the Master. What else is he?
He was in.
Listen,
just look him up, and he was in a Twisted Sister video.
Awesome.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think he was Niedermeyer in it though.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So look that up, because that's worth a watch. But
you're gonna take it.
Yeah, that's the video. Actually, he's in 2 Twisted Sister videos.
Well, that'll be
he's hilarious.
My next YouTube search.
He's absolutely hilarious.
He's hilarious as Niedermeyer. So the fact that the 2 roles I associate him with are this and Niedermeyer are pretty fantastic. He's got range, even though I guess they're not really that different when you think about it. Oh goodness!
He was in other stuff. I just can't think of what it is off the top of my head.
Oof. I love it.
All right.
Let's see. What other spoilery? I don't think there is anything else super huge. Oh,
yeah.
I did think it was funny. I can't remember where I saw this one brought up, but how this is the first and only time really we get any sort of reference to bright colors attracting vampires or standing out. And I'm assuming it would just be obvious that you aren't one of them if you're wearing bright colors. But I think
it's a myth. That seems like the kind of thing that people would say.
Like correlation does not necessarily equal causation. But it did make me think of Spike finding Willow particularly biteable in her pink frilly sweater that we saw last episode that he references in season 4. I was like, well, maybe Spike appreciates the bright colors. We know he's attracted
I'm
to
sure
Buffy.
Some vampires do and some don't.
Right. I would assume it would just make it very clear that you were not one of them.
Well, listen. If it was me and I was the Master, what I would do is I'd get a conveyor belt and a tap system. And then the color wouldn't matter because then
red.
well, I mean I do like the motif that these vampires want to take it up a notch. You know what? We want to be more Shakespeare here. We don't want to go out. We want to be the anti-Spike. which is not true. Like, I think the whole point of being a vampire is being aggressive and a predator. And he's like, we don't want to be predators. We just want to get you, put you in a cage, and then use you as a tap
they
system.
just go steal from blood banks?
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I guess this is more efficient. They're curating their own.
Well, and maybe
the fact that they get a wine glass and swirl it around, and the blood is all kind of sticking and congealing. That was
some of those tubes were not going into places where there was just blood.
Yeah, there would be all kinds of other stuff.
I'm sorry. Okay, this isn't. I'm sorry. This isn't really spoilery, but I don't know.
That's when we start to get too real about things. Like the fact that a stake sometimes doesn't have to be in their heart.
Yeah.
Like a stake to the heart, not necessarily always the case.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that arrow that hit Angel in this episode wasn't in the heart, but
yeah, it was more. It was more sort of like
kind of
above the stomach. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
I will like, and this isn't really spoilery either, although I do like that in continuity, we don't see Angel in this episode in the current day. He's listening to Buffy. He's staying away from her. I do like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't continue, obviously, but they are sticking to continuity in ways that shows don't usually do that.
Yeah, this is true.
This was one of the first shows that, after the X-Files, that had season arcs. Genre shows used to be more Monster of the Week, and so Buffy having these like long series, like season stories, was at the time kind of groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And to be able to do it like the X-Files, you can have a Monster of the Week, and they do that. Like, this would have been one of those kind of standalone episodes, but they do it. Yeah. They do it in a way that you can also continue the arc, and that happens in every episode of Buffy throughout the 7 seasons. We get to see these cute little standalone episodes, and while still continuing or starting new arcs. You can almost listen. Last week's episode really wasn't that, but it really kind of was. We got that one episode in Junction of Spike, but in that standalone Spike episode, we get all these like little fingertips that go out, and we got that again. We got that again in this episode, and there aren't many episodes. The X-Files, through its strong years, does that very well as well. It keeps that main storyline going through the whole thing until the writers lost sight of what they were doing. I'm not saying that doesn't happen in Buffy, but it ends at the right time, and they definitely, through the ebbs and the flows, like I'd argue that some of the best episodes were in the later 2 seasons. There's some really good season 6 episodes, obviously. Speaking of Dark Willow, but there's really good. She does say bored now in Doppelganger too. Doppelgangland too. Just there's 4 or 5 times it comes up, but I know it comes up in that. So
all right, I'm calling it. That's the complete end of the show. Thank you everybody for listening, and until next time, I'm Penny,
and I'm Kara,
and I'm completely lost in my notes. Hold on.
We're just doing the end.
Oh yeah. And I'm Jim.
Keep slaying.